So, good morning. Is it audible? So, in the last class, I think we started with Indian feudalism. After completing some topics related to early medieval, and we are talking about the economic aspects of feudalism, political dimensions we discussed yesterday, which are associated with political fragmentation, decentralization, and creation of local pockets of power. Now, in economic, I think we have written some points. How many points we have written? What is the last point? Just let me know. Collapse of India's exchange network, that is trading relations, particularly related to external trade and long distance internal trade. Though all these things are highly disputed, but we are going with the general. Then write the next point. Tendencies towards tendencies towards deurbanization. Tendencies towards deurbanization. So, expansion of economic activities associated with urbanization and contraction of economic activities associated with deurbanization. So, this trend is quite obvious by this time. Meanwhile, I have a question here. Sir, what is emergence of local magnates in decline of bureaucracy? Local magnates, let me tell you, and I have a recent example. Do you know about Mukhias? And do you know about Mukhiyapatis? They are local magnates. And what happens to block development officers when they come in conflict with local Mukhias with a Scorpio and Bolero? Don't you think they have some sort of informal or formal control on bureaucrats? So you cannot act as per your whims and fancies. There can be people at the local level who can put a check on you, if not formally, informally. So whenever we have concentration of power in the hands of the local people, naturally central authorities are going to experience some difficulties. I hope this position is understood, though my example was not very suitable, but I thought it to be more contemporary. We all know about local magnates. Clear? Now, we have written tendencies towards deurbanization. And it is not only about deurbanization, we also know that volume of monetization is something that is related to the degree of economic progress and prosperity. So more developed economies generally have higher volume of monetization. So you must be knowing about punch marked coins. Do you know about them? In the overall context of the second urbanization, we have silver coins known as punch marked coins, which are accepted as the earliest coins of the Indian subcontinent. After punch marked coins, we have coins issued by the foreign ruling groups like Indo-Greeks, Kushanas, and then Shakas. Shakas particularly known for their silver coins. Then we have Satvahana coins, mainly made of cheaper materials. Then we have Gupta coins, mainly made of precious metals like gold and silver, which suggest that coins in the Gupta time not used in day-to-day exchange activities, because high value coins can be used only in large scale exchanges and not in day-to-day exchanges. So it is not about the number of coins, it is about the quality and value of coins. also that determines what we can see the level of exchange activities. That's why we consider that Gupta economy was not as prosperous as the Satvahana economy, because in case of Satvahanas we have higher volume of monetization. So here, right here, decreasing volume of monetization. Next point, decreasing volume of monetization. Decreasing volume of monetization. Gupta period onwards. Gupta period onwards. Gupta coins are made of precious metals, but they are not found in plenty. So we have shortage of coins. Now this is something which in history can be called and has been called problem of coinage. That is nothing but dearth of coinage. And by the time we reach the early medieval age, when we have these dynasties like Pratiharas, Palas and Rajput dynasties and others, we hardly find coins related to them. Now this is something that has been very important point of debate and discussion in Indian history. And if you go through the question papers, you will find that UPSC has asked question on this issue. Have you seen this question? No. Since generally we prepare for art and culture within inverted comma, we are slightly disoriented and we disassociate history from this so-called art and culture, without realizing that art and culture or Indian culture cannot be understood without historical framework, without political and economic framework. Cultural developments don't take place in vacuum. And that's why we generally, healthy approach is not to segregate history and culture and rephrase this expression art and culture, which has gained currency as Indian history and a culture from ancient to modern. So it is only in this expression we capture the spirit of the syllabus, not in the art and culture. Maybe this word has gained currency because of some popular guides available in the market, and you people prepare mainly according to the guides, which quite often tend to misguide, not a guide. But of course they do have the relief that you find known facts in them and you think that preparation is going on. And the tragedy happens when we start looking for the same thing in the classrooms also. That is mentioned in the guide but was not covered in the class. So the quality of class is not as per the quality of guides. Let me tell you that UPSC don't ask questions from guides. It does not ask questions even from what we can say class notes, our class notes. It has its own standard. Who makes questions? You tell me. Ultimately, coaching walas? No. Guide walas? No. Then who? Academicians, professors, assistant professors associated with reputed universities who teach those subjects in their respective colleges and universities. They make questions. They are the people who are well acquainted with recent trends emerging in the discipline, isn't it? And then who evaluate your answers? We the coaching walas or guide walas in the market? No. Again the same people. And unnecessarily in the coaching market, there has been a myth created, constructed over a long period of time that college teaching is altogether different than coaching teaching. Of course it is different because your classes are for 3 hours. So in this sense it can be different. Here you people are more sincere. In this context it can be different. But how it can be different content wise and approach wise, let me tell you. It is difficult, but move out of those romantic notions and what we can say undesirable myths and legends constructed in the field of preparation. What you read as at graduation level, that is important. That is important, and UPSC has mentioned only one qualification. It has not prescribed any book, and that qualification is what? Graduation. That any graduate would be able to answer questions without any specific preparation. But our approaches are distorted because we have some selfish interest in us that we want to qualify but without reading, without studying. And that's why we are in the trap of these market forces and the popular guides, because they give you relief. They give you some sort of relief, as at least something is going on. But whether that something is leading you towards success or creating obstacles, very few people have time to evaluate. So stay in contact with the question papers, and let me tell you that we generally don't follow popular method of teaching. We try to follow useful method, what as per our expertise or knowledge or wisdom. So don't expect that guides are going to be reproduced in the classes, and these expectations are not going to be fulfilled here. So here let me tell you that academic books are important, academic approaches are important, because finally your fate is in the hands of academicians. Getting this idea? So, and that's why don't ignore a standard textbooks and move out of the trap of popular guides available in the market. You must be knowing that those college or university professors, they don't respect we the coaching walas. They may have their own grudges. No? They don't respect even civil servants. They think that they are at the top of the world. Academicians have their own arrogance. No? So they don't respect us, and we don't respect even guide walas. And you think that UPSC is going to ask questions from the guides, and that's why you are stick to them. So you have created your own what is called fool's paradise. And whenever some reality, touch of reality, then you don't like it because it assaults your arrogance. That is, you think that everything is okay, everything is fine with you. You just need some facts and details, and you can. It is now just a matter of chance. That is not the case. So have you gone through this question? This question is about monetization. It is about coins. How many of you are familiar with this question which has been asked by UPSC, which is related to coins and monetization? How many of you? Then how can you know what is happening in the class? So coming to the class after spending that much money and expecting something which is there popular, they are mentioned in the popular guides which are available in 200 rupees, is the greatest act of foolishness, howsoever smart you can think yourself to be. So anyone with this question, anyone online also can help me? Isn't it contradictory that Guptas, who issued largest number of coins, faced shortages of coins? Who said that Guptas issued largest number of coins? I have not read it anywhere. You may have read it. Guptas issued coins which were of high value, that is of precious metals. So when we say that they issued maximum number of coins with precious metals, that may be acceptable as per my level of knowledge. Maximum number of coins, generally we say in terms of what we can say gold coins. Clear? The earliest gold coins issued by the Indo-Greeks, the purest gold coins issued by the Kushanas, and the Gupta issued maximum number of gold coins, not the coins. I hope this confusion is clear. So there is a lot of explanation of punch marked coins in NCERT. Is it important for us? Yes, that is important, and that's why a lot of explanation in NCERT. Because now history has moved beyond the stories of great people of history, kings and queens, and the political classes. It has started taking note of what, see, let me tell you that GS is multidisciplinary, don't you think so? In GS we study everything. Likewise in history now we study everything. So let me tell you that history is nothing but GS of the past societies, and whatever is today known as GS is going to be history of the future. So here history provides you a platform, and that's why wise people use history not as a subject but as an approach. Basically, history is not a subject. History is not a subject. If I tell you this, some of you associated with history might feel offended, but I have reasons to say this. Do you think science is a discipline? Science is not a discipline. Science is basically name of an approach which has some methods, which has developed some methods, some yardsticks to test the reality. So scientific knowledge is produced when we use scientific method. That is empiricism, empirical method. That is based on observation, measurement and analysis. And analysis is application of reasoning, both inductive and deductive, to draw conclusions which are supposed to be universal, impartial, objective and neutral. And that's why scientific conclusions are supposed to be objective and universal, and we can make predictions on the basis of those conclusions. So when we study when we use the same approach to study the nature, we have natural sciences, and when we follow the same approach to study the society, we have social sciences. Science is not a discipline. Likewise, history is not a discipline. History is name of an approach, and the way scientific approach is important in life, in the same manner historical approach is also important in life. And that is required everywhere, in understanding economy, in understanding polity, in essay writing, in answer writing. Without historical sense, you cannot be smart enough to deal with the challenges thrown by different disciplines. So when we apply historical method to study political life, we have political history. When we apply historical method to study a social life, we have social history. When we apply historical method to study economic history, we have economic life, we have economic history, and we also now have natural history and history of science and technology. And that's why there can be no situation in which you say that I'm not familiar with history, or I don't know history, or I'm not interested in history. Whatever you may be interested in, or whatever may be your background, all part of history. So it cannot be a case that you understand polity well, but you don't understand history. How can it be? You can understand the modern polity constitution well, and we can't understand Gupta polity, which is quite simple. So history bashing has been basically a fashion. You think that when you dislike history, or when you oversimplify history, or what is there in history except some facts and details, you think that you are more modern, because you are a person who is not oriented towards the past but towards the future, without realizing that even future is part of history. It's all integrated whole. So you don't know your place in time, you don't know your place in history, you don't know the trends which are affecting you, you don't know the forces which have made you, if you are not familiar with the discipline called history. So this is less about history and more about now economy, polity, or society, all those things, and go through the question papers. UPSC generally not asking biographical questions related to great personalities of a history. It is asking questions related to social life, related to economic life. One such question has been asked by UPSC, I think few years back, which is related to monetization, which is related to coins. And it is this question I am expecting you people to tell me. After Satish Chandra, books like Sara, S.A.A. Rizvi, The Wonder That Was India, helpful, but see the thickness of that book, Rizvi, The Wonder That Was India. You can read that book selectively. And if you are trying to chase extraordinary facts and details while preparing for civil services, let me tell you that you are killing your time, efforts and energy. You can read 50 books, but they can ask questions from the 51st book. So how can you chase it? So do the things better than others which can be actually done in order to qualify this exam. Don't chase extraordinary, because that is endless chase. And what is administrative approach? Minimum input, maximum output. So spend your energies in those areas where some changes or some effect can be produced. And that's why this exam is all about extraordinary command over ordinary. It is not about chase for extraordinary, which is not possible. So Rizvi you can read, but then there are problems not with the book, but with the time which is available with us. We have limited resources and we have to spend our resources judiciously. That's why I'm not suggesting thick books like A.L. Basham, that is Wonder That Was India for Ancient, or Wonder That Was India for Medieval by Rizvi. So stick to the NCERT books, rely upon class notes, and stay connected with current. Stay connected with a current. In examination hall, we can have different degrees of difficulties. So there may be some questions which you can answer without any specific preparation, or anyone can answer, isn't it? Suppose 10 questions have been asked in history, and the same is the case with other disciplines also. So out of these 10 questions, all of them are not going to be of equal degree of difficulty for you. So one or two questions may be of such nature that anyone can answer, isn't it? 2 or 3 questions may be of such nature that no one can answer. Even we the teachers, we the faculties, we find some questions as if we are hearing of them for the first time. Arey, ye kya hai? ठीक है, though we can pretend that we know everything, but that is not the case. I have spent around a quarter of century with this discipline that is called history. ये मैं फेंकने के लिए नहीं कह रहा हूँ. If I take graduation, post graduation, and then experiences, and then teaching experiences, almost a quarter of century I have spent with this discipline. And do you think I am fool? No. Do you think that I am mentally retarded? Definitely. Okay. Definitely not. Okay, definitely not. Definitely not. Getting this idea? So even after spending a quarter of century with this discipline as a learner, I can't say that I will be able to answer all the questions asked by UPSC in the next year exam. So you may be more talented than me and less retarded than me. Getting this idea? But naturally you are not going to spend more time than me, what I have spent with this discipline, because I have no other work now. And you have so many things to do in your life. So when I am not aspiring for answering all the questions, if you undertake this project ki out of 10 I am going to answer all the 10, don't you think you are becoming emotional and you are following an approach which is not practically possible, or which is suicidal? So the problem with PT is that generally those people who prepare specifically for PT, they don't qualify PT, because the questions are of such nature which requires understanding. But who is going to stop you? Because you are motivated by market forces and guides. So one reason people don't qualify PT is to prepare exclusively for PT under social pressure. People would be telling you in different context, अरे यार पूछो मत, ठीक है, बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, पहले पीटी तो हो, मेंस का देख लेंगे. पीटी इसलिए तो नहीं हो रहा है जो मेंस का नहीं देख रहे हो, इसलिए नहीं हो रहा है पीटी, because UPSC has not divided the subject. You are not preparing for SSC, you are not preparing for bank services, you are not preparing for one day. If jobs are different here, the nature of exam is also different. Here understanding is more important than rote memorization. And you link understanding with mains, and you link memorization with PT, and you think that there are some discrete items which you can memorize for PT, and after that you can take note of understanding part. That is not possible practically. Integrated approach. Follow integrated approach. Another reason for not qualifying PT is that we start preparing for extraordinary. So out of 10 questions, it can be a situation that out of 10 questions, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let us assume that they are in increasing order of what we can say degrees of difficulty. 1 and 2 can be answered by anybody, and 9th and 10th can, 8th, 9th and 10th can't be answered by anybody. Or that just may be matter of chance. Matter of a chance, luck. There are so many other factors. So where is the preparation? This is the range, practical range of a preparation. And even those people who qualify PT quite regularly, they can't answer confidently more than 30 to 35 questions correctly. After that, it's all what? Intelligent guessing, elimination, prediction, isn't it? So even if you answer 50%, target 50%, so target just 1 to 5. Be a little more ambitious, target 1 to 6. And if you do it everywhere, and if you maintain what we can say balance and harmony, you are going to qualify PT. And you are going to qualify main examination also, because you are left with enough time, efforts and energy to invest on more useful projects. The tragedy happens when panic is created on the basis of some stray questions or extraordinary questions. अरे बाप रे, पता है यूपीएससी कैसे सवाल पूछ रही है, अब एनसीईआरटी से काम नहीं चलेगा, अब लानी पड़ेगी कोई sacred book, ताराचंद, 4 or 5 volumes of freedom struggle, or H.H. Dodwell of what we can say Indian national movement. So those people who start their preparation from this side, they will never qualify PT. Getting this idea? इसलिए कि ये तो impractical है, ये तो कभी होगा नहीं, और इसके हुए बिना आप इधर आओगे नहीं. Getting this idea? So if you prepare for PT exclusively, you are not going to qualify PT. Even if you qualify by any chance, next year you are again going to appear in PT. Getting this? And if you approach disciplines, in a manner which is practically not possible, again you are not going to qualify PT. So move from simple and try to, this is the zone of ordinary, have extraordinary command over ordinary, and don't try to chase what is extraordinary, which is practically not possible. 25 साल कम नहीं होते, उतनी तो मेरी उम्र भी नहीं हुई, ठीक है, उतनी तो मेरी उम्र भी नहीं हुई, और हिस्ट्री की दुनिया में ही रहना है. आप जैसे ब्राइट लोग मिलते रहते हैं, क्वेश्चंस पूछते रहते हैं, उनका आंसर देना पड़ता है. थोड़ा तो पढ़ना पड़ता होगा ना हमें, ऐसा तो नहीं है. उसके बावजूद लेट मी टेल यू वेरी फ्रेंकली कि नेक्स्ट ईयर इफ यूपीएससी इज गोइंग टू आस्क 10 क्वेश्चंस, आई विल नॉट बी इन अ पोजीशन टू आंसर ऑल ऑफ देम. कुछ क्वेश्चंस मेरे रीच के बाहर होंगे, और कुछ तो ऐसा लगेगा कि मैंने पहली बार सुने हैं. So if you develop this kind of unrealistic notions कि इमोशनल हो गए, मैं तो छोड़ूंगा नहीं, फोड़ के रख दूंगा, बेटा आप फूटोगे, ठीक है, आप फूटोगे. कंट्रोल योरसेल्फ, चेक योरसेल्फ, ठीक है. Unnecessarily impulsive actions are not required in administration, so they are not needed while preparing also. Pardon? Everywhere. Be a little above average everywhere. You are going to be extraordinary. Don't worry about that. Because if you are investing your time, efforts, energy here, you are not showing administrative approach. Here you will have maximum input and minimum output. Here you will have minimum input and maximum output. There must be, you must be knowing about a theory that is called marginal utility. Have you ever heard of marginal utility? And there is one more related theory that is called diminishing return. Diminishing return. So rely upon these theories while preparing. एक ही discipline को बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ोगे तो after some time you are going to have what? Diminishing return. So change the discipline. Do you think that you can qualify this exam only by preparing history or polity or economy? No, that is not the case. And use these principles in day-to-day life also. That first hour of study, second hour of study, third hour of study. Do you think that your return going to be equal? No. So when you develop some inhibitions, change the subject. Change the subject to increase the output. Is it clear? But in any case, you are not supposed to chase extraordinary. Be extraordinary in the things which can be done. Or वैसे भी, if the question is too easy and too difficult, both way, that is useless for the examiner also. Because the purpose of exam is to find out individual differences. Getting this idea? And test items are constructed. These are basically psychological device. Objective tests, subjective tests, their pattern, their objective, all psychology. So questions can be set by historians, but the test pattern and the objective of test, everything is what? Psychological. That is devices to find out individual differences. Clear? So you can be tested only on those things which can be done or which can be done with greater ease and efficiency than others, where we can have some competition. So if the question is too easy, don't you think the test item is now neutral? Because it is known to everybody. It cannot be helpful in what we can say, bringing out individual differences. And if the question is too difficult, it is beyond the reach of everybody, then again the test item is what? Neutral. And that's why in the examination hall, moderate degrees of difficulty. That is, give a task which can be performed. Only then you can judge who is performing better. Getting this idea? So everything that you think in your mind that cannot be done is basically myth, cholesterol produced by your mind. That is your romanticization of this preparation, nothing else. Clear? UPSC is not organizing a quiz. Quiz समझते हो ना? Quiz में होता है ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछे किसी के बाप को ना पता हो. UPSC ऐसे सवाल नहीं पूछती है. वैसे सवाल पूछती है जो एक एवरेज ग्रेजुएट को पता होना चाहिए, if he is living his life in a natural or graduate manner, or in a manner which is expected on the part of graduates. वो पता होने चाहिए. जो पता होने चाहिए वो नहीं पता है, then you are disqualified. Is this position clear? जो पता हो ही नहीं सकते आपको, जो आपके रीच के अंदर है ही नहीं, you are not going to be judged on that basis. अगर ऐसा यूपीएससी करेगी तो होल पर्पस ऑफ द टेस्ट वुड बी डिफीटेड. सो स्टे कनेक्टेड विथ करंट, समथिंग विच इज एक्सपेक्टेड ऑफ अ ग्रेजुएट. स्टे कनेक्टेड विथ क्वेश्चन पेपर्स. स्टे कनेक्टेड विथ द disciplines and be familiar with the recent trends which are emerging in the disciplines, because finally academicians are going to decide your fate. And also be familiar with the general intellectual currents of your time. Okay? Have you ever seen any question in UPSC which can be directly related to the topic कि unit number इतना और subsection number इतना और question number इतना? नहीं. तो UPSC deviates or not? Deviate करती है? करती है ना? हम लोग क्लास में भी deviate करते हैं. क्यों deviate करते हैं? इसीलिए कि उस डेविएशन को कैप्चर किया जा सके. यूपीएससी का प्रिपरेशन ग्रेजुएशन और किसी यूनिट का सेशनल एग्जाम के लिए प्रिपरेशन नहीं है. ठीक है? तो यूपीएससी रिलीजियसली और लिटरली सिलेबस को फॉलो नहीं करती है. यूपीएससी का कोई सिलेबस नहीं है, कोई डिफाइंड सिलेबस नहीं है. जस्ट एस्पेक्ट्स आर मेंशन्ड. और उसमें आप लोग सिलेबस से इतने बध जाते हो. ठीक है? तो डोंट परसीव सिलेबस इन ए मैकेनिकल मैनर. यूपीएससी सिलेबस इज डायनेमिक. स्टे इन कॉन्टेक्ट विद द सिलेबस टू अंडरस्टैंड द डायनेमिक्स ऑफ द सिलेबस, टू अंडरस्टैंड द इंटर रिलेशंस ऑफ डिफरेंट पार्ट्स, डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स, बिकॉज क्वेश्चंस आर asked from that area. Most of the time they ask questions from beyond topics. Beyond topics means what? There are two topics, this and this. So neither from this nor from this. Question would be what? Based on the interrelation between the two, which is not mentioned in the syllabus. Something that is left to you to understand because you have better faculties of mind than others. So even syllabus is a trap. If you pay attention to the syllabus in a very literal manner, that this topic and that, again that is going to be quite problematic. यूपीएससी का एक ही सिलेबस है, क्या ग्रेजुएट आप हैं कि नहीं? एंड यू कैन बी ग्रेजुएट फ्रॉम एनी डिसिप्लिन. You can be graduate from engineering or from medical or from history or from social sciences. Because being graduate is all about having a particular level of awareness and possessing some critical faculties of mind. If you have those critical faculties of mind, if you have that awareness level, you can easily handle the syllabus, otherwise not. So no book prescribed, no course prescribed, no coaching prescribed. ऐसा थोड़ा यूपीएससी ने लिखा है कि एनसीईआरटी पढ़ कर आना, सॉरी ग्रेजुएट होके आना. बट द गैप बिटवीन द ग्रेजुएट्स हु आर बीइंग प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय आवर एजुकेशन सिस्टम एंड द ग्रेजुएट्स विच यूपीएससी हैज इन इट्स माइंड, दैट इज क्रिएटिंग द प्रॉब्लम. उसी को कवर करना इज प्रिपरेशन. सो कितनी बार आपसे और कहना पड़ेगा कि क्वेश्चंस के टच में रहिए. दिस इज रियली वेरी डिप्रेसिंग टू नो कि इतने इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस हैं जो मेंस में पूछे गए. आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट पीटी क्वेश्चंस, एंड नन ऑफ यू ऑनलाइन ऑफलाइन फेमिलियर विद दिस, एंड यू थिंक दैट यू आर प्रिपेयरिंग वेल. आपको लगता है कि क्लास में पता नहीं क्या बातें होती हैं, हम अच्छे से कर लेंगे. तो यही तो अच्छे से किया है कि क्वेश्चन पेपर भी नहीं देखा अब तक. इसी बेसिस पे करोगे, ऐसे ही कर लोगे. तो एटीट्यूड जरा सा सब्जेक्ट को भी दिखाओ ना, थोड़ा सा उधर भी दिखाओ. स्टे इन कॉन्टेक्ट. योर माइंड इज वेरी पावरफुल डिवाइस. कभी पूछा कि लैंग्वेज कैसे सीखे? नहीं, सीख गए ना. एक्सपोज योर सेल्फ टू द लर्निंग सिचुएशंस. स्टे इन कॉन्टेक्ट विद दैट. द माइंड वुड बी सजेस्टिंग वेज टू एनालाइज, एंड माइंड वुड स्टार्ट ऑटोमेटिकली एनालाइजिंग थिंग्स. माइंड इज वेरी पावरफुल डिवाइस. And just free your mind from unnecessary anxiety, unrealistic notions and unrealistic assumptions. Be cool, be calm. अगर बहुत एंजाइटी अगर आपको हो रही है, ठीक है, इफ यू आर ओवर सिंसियर, अरे तोड़ देना है फोड़ देना है, तो सिंपली इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि अगर आप जो बहुत ज्यादा घबराहट में है, दैट इज मोर एंजाइटी इज नॉट एन इंडिकेशन और नॉट अ मेजर ऑफ मोर सिंसियरिटी. It is simply that your system is not coping up with the challenges, and that's why you are always thinking of preparation. एक ऐसे 2 मिनट यहाँ बर्बाद हो गए, 5 मिनट वहां बर्बाद हो गए, सुबह 6 बजे उठ जाना है. एंजाइटी प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हो बिना मतलब का. थोड़ा रिलैक्स हो जाओ, आराम से जिस दिन सोने का मन करे सो लो ना, क्या दिक्कत है. अटेंडिंग अ मैरिज पार्टी थिंकिंग ऑफ पॉलिटी, क्यों मतलब है? डांस करो जम के वहां पे, ठीक है. आना लौट के तो पॉलिटी पढ़ लेना, प्रॉब्लम क्या, ठीक है. So always thinking of the preparation. एकदम दुनिया तो कहेगी तोड़ दो फोड़ दो, या तो तुम नहीं तो आईएएस नहीं. दुनिया को बोलो बेटा आईएएस रहेगा नहीं रहेगा, मैं तो रहूंगा. So your capacities are more than what you actually think. But the problem is that we all are victim of unrealistic assumptions, irrational considerations. अब आपने डिसाइड कर लिया कि 100 पेज आज पढ़ेंगे, क्यों? 5 दिन नहीं पढ़ने का गिल्ट है. So naturally this goal is what? Unrealistic. You are not going to fulfill it. What will happen? 20 पेज पढ़े, फिर सेल्फ क्रिटिसिज्म, पता नहीं मुझसे हो ही नहीं पाता, क्यों नहीं हो पाता, मैं ऐसा हूं, मैं वैसा हूं, मैं कैसा हूं. नेगेटिव वर्बलाइजेशन अबाउट योर ओन सेल्फ. आपने 100 पेज का बनाया ही क्यों टारगेट? डोंट यू थिंक दैट इट वाज अनरियलिस्टिक? और बाकी 5 दिन आप पढ़े क्यों नहीं? क्या कर रहे थे? विच वर्क इज मोर इंपॉर्टेंट देन दिस? And finally, compilation of tasks. So it is better to have realistic goals and accomplish them and have a sense of satisfaction than to have grand, impractical, noble, ideal goals and being failed in achievement and have a sense of frustration. because you must be knowing about conditioning, classical conditioning, instrumental conditioning. Positive behavior is reinforced. So read 20 pages, feel happy. Next time you are going to read 25 to feel more happy. ठीक है, set a target for 100 pages, ठीक है, and read even 30 and have a feeling that your target was not fulfilled. It means there is some lack on your part. Next day you are not going to read even 10 pages. Why? Because you are indulged in something else. उसके बाद से आप ढूंढोगे फैकल्टी कहाँ है, पूछे सर ऐसा होता है, पढ़ते हैं तो खा लेते हैं तो भूख नहीं लगती है, पढ़ लेते हैं तो भूल जाते हैं, पढ़ने के बाद सभी भूल जाते हैं. ये आपको कहाँ से प्रॉब्लम हो रही है? सोते हैं तो नींद आ जाती है सर, ये कोई प्रॉब्लम है? ऐसा कोई माइंड बना है जो पढ़े सबको सब याद ही रह जाए? ऐसा कोई है? और अगर सारी चीजें याद रहे पगलाने में कितना टाइम लगेगा? तो बिना मतलब के इंपल्सिव नहीं होना, इमोशनल नहीं होना है. Impulsive and emotional people are not good administrators. So you have been given a task, you can perform this task better than others only when you have some personality traits better than others. So let me tell you very frankly that this exam is less about details, more about your personality. How you are coping up with the challenges, how you are processing the details, and with what objective in mind. तो ये बिना मतलब का जो रटते हो ना, 5 रट गए, निमोनिक्स बना कर रट गए, ये सब है, करते रहो, दुनिया कर रही है, आप भी करो, बट दिस आर ऑल मिस यूज ऑफ रिसोर्सेज. वनडे कंपटीशन की तैयारी करने नहीं आए हो, ना किसी क्विज में पार्टिसिपेट करने जा रहे हो. हाउ टू इनकॉर्पोरेट ऑल द सब्जेक्ट्स इन प्रिपरेशन, रूटीन और शेड्यूल. डू इट एज पर योर कन्वीनियंस. कोई रिचुअलिज्म थोड़े है. वी आर नॉट प्रिस्ट्स. देर इज नो डेफिनेट वे. देर आर लॉट ऑफ व्हाट वी कैन से सब्जेक्टिविटी. ठीक है, किसी को सुबह पढ़ना अच्छा लगता है, किसी को शाम को पढ़ना अच्छा लगता है. तो डिसाइड. यू आर गोइंग टू बी डिसीजन मेकर्स एंड द होल कंट्री इज गोइंग टू रिलाई अपॉन योर डिसीजंस. यू कांट टेक दिस सिंपल डिसीजंस इन योर लाइफ कि सुबह पढ़ें कि शाम को पढ़ें, इकोनॉमी पढ़ें कि पॉलिटी पढ़ें. यू कांट डिसाइड दिस. इसके लिए भी रिलायंस होगा. सो वी आर फैकल्टीज, वी आर असिस्टिंग यू, वी आर नॉट प्रिस्ट्स. और इन द फील्ड ऑफ प्रिपरेशन थिंग्स आर नॉट मैकेनिकली डिटर्मिन्ड. जैसे वो तो प्रिस्टली में होता है ना, ठीक है, या रिचुअल में होता है ना, जहां एक्सपर्ट नॉलेज होती है कि अब आप साउथ की तरफ मुंह करके बैठ जाओ, अब आप खड़े हो जाओ. जैसे मैरिज होता है, शादी होता है, उस दिन थिंग्स आर बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल. लोग उठाते हैं तो उठते हो, बिठाते हैं तो बैठते हो, बिकॉज यू डोंट नो हाउ टू एक्ट एग्जैक्टली. ठीक है, अब आपको, मुझे जब छुहारे खिलाया गया मैं पूरा खाने लगा. लोगों ने कहा नहीं सॉरी, पूरा नहीं खाते, आधा खाते हैं. ठीक है, आधा रख दिया जाता है किसी और के लिए. तो आई डोंट नो. तो मैं पूछूंगा ना, सर पूरा खाना है कि आधा खाना है. सो व्हेन थिंग्स आर नॉट सो प्रिडिक्टेबल, वहां पर इस तरह की एक्सपर्ट नॉलेज की जरूरत होती है. ठीक है, अब आप सवाल ऐसे पूछो, सर नहा के पढ़े कि पढ़ के नहाए? कांट यू टेक दिस डिसीजन ऑन योर ओन? ठीक है, क्लास नोट्स पढ़े कि एनसीईआरटी पढ़े? कांट यू टेक दिस डिसीजन ऑन योर ओन? डू यू थिंक दैट थिंग्स आर रिचुअलाइज्ड? दैट इज नॉट योर फॉल्ट. द मार्केट हैज क्रिएटेड रिचुअल्स. अननेसेसरी एक्सपर्टीज. एक काम करो, पहले ये कर लो फिर ये कर लो. अरे जो मन करता है वो पहले कर लो ना. देयर आर सम ब्रॉडर प्रिंसिपल्स. ब्रॉडर प्रिंसिपल्स ये है कि डोंट डू द थिंग्स विच कैन नॉट बी कंसोलिडेटेड. रीड लेस, अंडरस्टैंड मोर. दैट इज व्हाट रिवीजन. एंड डोंट गो व्हाट वी कैन से फॉर एक्सपेंशन विच कैन नॉट बी कंसोलिडेटेड. दिस आर द ब्रॉडर प्रिंसिपल्स. ठीक है, 2 घंटा पढ़ने वालों का भी हुआ है, 18 घंटा वालों का भी हुआ है, 18 घंटा वालों का भी नहीं हुआ है. तो कितने घंटे पढ़े? ठीक है, ये कौन डिसाइड करेगा? डिसाइड अकॉर्डिंग टू योर कंफर्ट. मैक्सिमम टाइम दो, जितना दे सकते हो उतना दो. और बाकी और किसी के, अगर इससे भी इंपॉर्टेंट कोई काम है तो उसमें भी टाइम दो. अगर आपको लगता है कि यू हैव मोर इंपॉर्टेंट टास्क देन दिस, तो उसको भी टाइम दो. बट इफ यू थिंक दैट दिस इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टास्क यू हैव अंडरटेकन इन योर लाइफ, देन गिव द टाइम टू दिस प्रोजेक्ट. ये तो अपनी प्रायोरिटीज आप डिसाइड करोगे ना. So all these are just unnecessary nautankies. How to prepare UPSC in 3 months? ये तो आज मुझे बाबा ही बना दिया सवाल पूछ पूछ के. See, don't try to prepare UPSC in 3 months. There is no magic. If you think that if you ask me how many time is required for UPSC preparation, लेट मी टेल यू वेरी फ्रेंकली, 0 आवर. एक दिन की भी जरूरत नहीं है आईएएस की तैयारी करने के लिए. लोग कहते हैं ना 1.5 ईयर होना चाहिए. एक दिन की भी जरूरत नहीं है. बिकॉज ग्रेजुएट, बी अ ग्रेजुएट, अपीयर इन द एग्जाम, क्वालिफाई द एग्जाम, बी अ ग्रेजुएट बेटर देन अदर्स. Getting this idea? So not even 3 months, not even 3 days are required, and even 30 years are not enough. Even 30 years are not enough. 30 years वालों को तो देखा नहीं मैंने, लेकिन 15-16 साल वालों को जरूर देखा है. ठीक है ना? That first preparing for this service, then for that service, and then taking some breaks, then state services. तो 15-16 साल वाले तो दिख जाते हैं. Even that much time is not enough. So it's all about your awareness level. If you have that awareness level, not a single day is required. If you don't have, try to have it. It may take some time. It is not कि कुछ fixed set of rituals perform करने हैं जो आप 3 महीने में कर लोगे तो 2 महीने में कर लोगे. That is not the case. So don't perceive it this way. But a fair amount of time is needed for at least going through the basic books. और मुझे नहीं लगता कि 1.5 साल 1 साल से कम टाइम चाहिए. 3 मंथ्स में कैसे कर लोगे? वो तो उसके लिए फिर किसी बाबा की तलाश करनी होगी. क्रैश कोर्सेज आर देयर एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स आर देयर. मुझे नहीं लगता कि इफ यू आर नॉट ऑलरेडी प्रिपेयर्ड इन 3 मंथ्स यू कैन रिवाइज. एंड लेट मी टेल यू, पीपल आर देयर हु कैन प्रिपेयर इन 15 days ऑल्सो. हैव यू सीन दिस काइंड ऑफ पीपल हु हैव क्वालिफाइड एनी एग्जाम अर्लियर? दैट इज IRS. एंड दैट IRS इज नाउ busy in doing so many things, and then before PT 15 or 20 days he would be calling you if he is your friend कि बेटा कहाँ हो? दिल्ली में. मैं भी आ रहा हूँ. तुम क्यों आ रहे हो? तो सोच रहा हूँ इम्प्रूवमेंट के लिए. तो have you seen this kind of people? Those who qualify, they qualify regularly. ठीक है, तो वो आया. and we also have some glory कि selected candidate के साथ बैठ के पढ़ रहे हैं, something like this. and while the person would be living in your room using your material which we have collected throughout the year and having discussion with you, and while discussing with that person you might have this impression that this person is fool and UPSC is an organization which can select anybody. And in most of the cases you think that you are wiser, you are better prepared, and then you will start cursing your luck. ये कैसे हो गया, मेरा कैसे नहीं हुआ. And next year history is going to repeat itself. You will become IPS and you will stay in the same room preparing for the next year. Now in his life we have more engagements. These are actual real life examples I am telling you. Now in his life more engagements. अब उसको कोचिंग वाले पकड़ रहे हैं कि हमारे यहाँ सेमिनार में आके भाषण दो. Don't you think he is spending less time on actual studies now? He has joined the academy. He is now busy in preparation. ठीक है, वहां पर भी एग्जाम्स होते हैं. ट्रेनिंग आसान तो होती नहीं होगी. इस बीच में उसको कोई और किसी काम के लिए बुला रहा है. सोशल एंगेजमेंट उसकी आपसे तो ज्यादा हो गई ना, उसके पास ज्यादा कॉल्स आएंगे. ठीक है, एंड यू आर नाउ मोर सिंसियर इन द सेम रूम सिटिंग इन द दिल्ली ORN ओल्ड राजेंद्र नगर, collecting some more notes, consulting some more faculties and joining some more coachings and thinking that UPSC is full. This time I am going to break it. पिछली बार, maybe next year the same person calling you again. कहाँ हो? दिल्ली. आ रहा हूं फिर से. क्यों? IAS बनना है. And this time the person has only 10 days. छुट्टी नहीं मिल रही, कोशिश कर रहा हूं. Coming and again living with you, reading the materials collected by you, having discussion with you and qualifying for IAS. ठीक है, or you still in the same room, in the same position with the same materials, but of course now with more strong emotions. Now with more strong emotions. Don't you think these are real life occurrences? इस तरह के एक्सपीरियंस बहुतों को होंगे, यहाँ पूछ लेना. तो now the issue is कि how much time is being actually spent. You are spending the whole year. That person is spending 10 days. ठीक है, तो फिर, और इफ यू थिंक कि पिछले साल का पढ़ा हुआ उसको याद होगा, उसके बेसिस पे करते हो, दैट इज नॉट द केस. दैट इज नॉट द केस. यू आर मोर अपडेटेड, यू आर मोर नॉलेजेबल. So then where is the mystery? What is that thing? वो कौन सी चीज है जो उसके अंदर से जा नहीं रही? Because one time selection may be matter of chance, repeated selection may not be matter of chance. So what is that thing which is not leaving him or her despite his or her engagement in so many other activities? Getting this idea? And what is that which is not coming to you? वो आपके अंदर आ नहीं रही despite all your engagement in preparation. वो क्या है? मतलब उसके अंदर से जा ही नहीं रही, वो पढ़ ही नहीं रहा, फिर भी उसके अंदर से जा नहीं रही, और आप लगातार पढ़े जा रहे हो, आपके अंदर आ नहीं रही, वो कौन सी चीज है? If you have that metal, then even 1 month is enough for you. So it's not about spending years, it is about developing a personality. If you already have it, it's okay. You can deal with the task better than others and you can display your success better than others. और अगर नहीं, अगर सिर्फ, तो फिर वो चीज क्या है? Have you ever thought of it? जिस दिन वो चीज पकड़ में आ जाएगी उस दिन क्वालिफाई कर जाओगे. वो चीज फैक्ट्स और डिटेल में नहीं है, इसलिए कि नॉलेज तो उसके पास आपसे कम था. आपने कई सारे कंसेप्ट उसको बताए. यू आस्क्ड सर्टेन थिंग्स व्हिच ही कुड नॉट आंसर. आपको लगा कि ऐसे बेवकूफ का सिलेक्शन कैसे हो गया? इट इज नॉट नॉलेज, इट इज नॉट इंफॉर्मेशन, इट इज समथिंग मोर देन दिस. It is the power of his or her mind to process the details. And here individual differences can be created. If you are lacking here, 10 साल भी कम पढ़ेंगे आपको, फिर भी तैयारी नहीं होगी. And if you are possessing these characteristics, 10 month क्या? Have you seen this kind of people? If completing their graduation, writing their final examination, 3rd year or 4th year, and in the same year appearing in the exam and qualifying without any coaching, without any, ठीक है, तो फिर कैसे कोई बताए? This is not mechanical process. This is not mechanical a process. Someone has asked a question whose name is Rishabh and someone is supporting him कि good question Rishabh, but that question is not there in front of me. So let me see what Rishabh has asked. कि how to incorporate all the subjects in preparation, routine, schedule और schedule. ये भाई इस क्लास का नेचर ही चेंज हो गया. I will not respond to this, but schedule क्या है? कुछ नहीं, पढ़ते रहो, जो मन करे पढ़ लो, but don't leave any subject for long, because revision is effective only when some connections are still intact. Getting this? So ऐसा नहीं कि आज कोई चीज पढ़ी तो उसके बाद से अगले साल उठाया, ठीक है ना? That should not be the case. So don't try to include all subjects daily, because practically that is not possible. आप डेली हर सब्जेक्ट नहीं पढ़ सकते. You are attending coaching, अपने आप में बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है. At times 2 classes. So even if you revise the class notes, give yourself treats. पार्टी दो अपने आप को, फ्रस्ट्रेट होने की जगह. The problem is कि हमें लगता है कि हम एनसीईआरटी भी उसी दिन पढ़ लेंगे, कोचिंग का मटेरियल भी उसी दिन पढ़ लेंगे, इकोनॉमी भी उसी दिन पढ़ लेंगे, पॉलिटी भी पढ़ लेंगे, क्लास भी कर लेंगे, रिवाइज भी कर लेंगे और याद भी कर लेंगे. तो जब इतना कुछ कर लोगे आप, तो यू आर देवता, यू आर नॉट अ ह्यूमन बीइंग. सो बी ह्यूमन, बी रियलिस्टिक. ठीक है ना? अभी टाइम नहीं मिल रहा है, बट टाइम विल कम व्हेन यू विल हैव टाइम. ठीक है? अभी प्रैक्टिकली जो पॉसिबल हो रहा है उसको करो, आराम से क्लास अटेंड करो. अगर क्लास नोट्स रिवाइज कर ले रहे हो रेगुलर बेसिस पे, दैट इज अ ग्रेट अचीवमेंट. इतना भी नहीं होता लोगों से. ठीक है? उसके साथ कोई एक चीज कर लो. अब सोचो कि सारे सब्जेक्ट रोज भी पढ़ लेंगे और कोचिंग भी कर लेंगे, जीएस भी कर लेंगे, ऑप्शनल भी कर लेंगे, तो यू आर बीइंग अनरियलिस्टिक. ये मत करो. सो दिस वाज द गुड क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड बाय ऋषभ. कोई भी सब्जेक्ट बहुत दिनों तक मत छोड़ो. ठीक है? स्टे इन टच ऑन रेगुलर बेसिस. पर्सनालिटी ट्रेट्स क्या होना चाहिए? सबसे पहली बात तो पेशेंस होना चाहिए. दूसरी चीज रियलिस्टिक होना चाहिए. ठीक है? तीसरी चीज क्या होना चाहिए? स्ट्रीट स्मार्ट नहीं होना चाहिए, स्मार्ट होना चाहिए. आई होप अंडरस्टैंड द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू. ठीक है? अनरियलिस्टिक स्मार्टनेस समझते हैं ना, मतलब अनरियलिस्टिक. माई क्वेश्चन वॉज हाउ टू चेक दैट माई कॉन्फिडेंस इट्स टर्निंग इन टू ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस, कॉन्फिडेंस को ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस, अरे कुछ नहीं इतना मत सोचो, थिंग्स आर डिफिकल्ट इन डिस्क्राइब व्हेन वी डिस्क्राइब देम, ठीक है, थिंग्स आर डिफिकल्ट व्हेन वी डिस्क्राइब देम, ऐसा होता है वैसा, अभी चलने के प्रोसेस को डिस्क्राइब करो ना, हाउ टू वॉक, सो माइंड गिव्स इंस्ट्रक्शन टू ऑर्गन्स, ऑर्गन्स एक्ट अकॉर्डिंग टू हार्मोन्स, देन हार्मोन्स आर सिक्रेटेड, और वो जो बायोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस विच आर इन्वॉल्व इन वॉकिंग, अगर उसका कोई ग्राफ बना के यहां दिखा दे तो लोग बैठ जाएंगे, चलना छोड़ देंगे, बाप रे इतना कुछ करना पड़ेगा, isn't it? This is what कोचिंग वालाज हैव डन, प्रोसेस को बना दिया, एकदम कॉम्प्लिकेटेड बना दिया, ऐसे करना होता है, लचक जाना होता है, मचक जाना होता है, ऐसे करना होता है, कुछ नहीं करना होता है, बस पढ़ना होता है. देयर वाज अ टाइम व्हेन पीपल, व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू बी मोर रेडिकल एंड यंग ऑल्सो, तो लोग पूछते थे कैसे पढ़ें, मैं बोलता था किताब से पढ़ो, किताब से पढ़ो, कैसे, किताब सामने रखो, आंख खोल के देखो, उसमें कुछ लिखा हुआ पढ़ो, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम यू वेस्ट योर टाइम इन अननेसेसरी प्लानिंग, ठीक है, पढ़ना शुरू कर दो, मोटी किताब भी पतली हो जाएगी, वरना पतली किताब के चक्कर में लोग बरसों से घूम रहे हैं, कहां मिलेगी पतली वाली, नहीं मिलती, सारी किताबें थोड़ी मोटी हैं ही. Now no longer प्रवचन. Let us change the nature of this class from प्रवचन to something else. I kept on getting some questions there and उसमें चला गया, मैं भावुक हो गया, थोड़ा इमोशनल हो गया. What was the last point? Now all economy gone. Okay, my initial frustration was related to your ignorance about this important question, which I wanted to use for understanding that if you don't know about the political background, economic background, you cannot answer that question. What is happening in political life? You tell me. We have decentralization, we have disintegration, we have erosion of the royal authority, isn't it? We have localism, and all these things are going to disrupt what we can say the exchange network. So coins are used for exchange. Coins also symbolize what we can say royal authority. So when royal authority is eroding as part of feudalism, who is going to take note of coins? Who is going to take care of coins? In short distance or local trade, we generally find exchange of goods for goods. That is called barter system. Or in India, we are going to see as part of socio-cultural, we have something that is called Jajmani system. Have you ever heard of Jajmani system in villages? That village artisans supplying their services to the village peasants throughout the year, but these artisans or these service providers are not paid in cash. They have some customary rights on the village land or a part of the produce of the village land. So coins not needed by a state, coins not needed by society, coins not needed by economy. Who will be taking care of the coins? Do you understand this? So if you don't understand this background, what is happening in political life, what is happening in economic life, what is happening in the socio-cultural life, something which is not related to coins and monetization, you cannot write that answer to that question, which is basically about monetization, but that is less about monetization, more about the context in which we have monetization and demonetization. Likewise, Gandhara is cool, Gandhara art. The question is less about what we can say the features and forms, more about the context in which we have rise of Gandhara. And history provides the context of our cultural developments. So, though we have separated culture to be done later on, but this, whatever we are learning in history, that is closely related to that, and that is going to provide you the stage or platform on the basis of which you will be developing the understanding of culture. Is this position clear? And don't try to segregate things. That is +2 style. Now try to interrelate and integrate. Integrate economy with polity, polity with society, society with everything. Something like this. So now write the next point. Okay, the question was, how do you justify the view? How do you justify the view that the level of excellence in Gupta numismatic art, in Gupta numismatic art that is related to coins, Gupta coins, gold coins and silver coins, art is not at all noticeable, not at all noticeable in the later times, because in the later times we have what? Decline of economy, we have economic localism, we have decline of political authority, and you must be knowing necessity is the mother of inventions. So if there is no necessity, then who is going to pay attention to them? So don't you think that excellence will not be noticeable in the later time? So this question is basically about Indian feudalism and the traits related to Indian feudalism, because the erosion of the quality of the coins, decrease in the number of the coins, all these things are explained on the basis of increasing tendencies towards a feudalism. Is this position clear? So go through this question and go through the question papers on regular basis, not to mark out which topic is important and which one is not important, but to understand the trend. Without understanding the trend, you will not be able to understand things. Now write next point. What was the last point, by the way? The decreasing volume of monetization. Then write, which ultimately, add in the same point something more, which ultimately created problems of, thanks for sharing the exact question with me, Kaushal Singh and Tanya. So what we have written here? Yes, which ultimately created what is known as the problems of, or problem of coinage. What is known as the problem of coinage, COINAGE, coinage in the early medieval time. Problem of coinage in the early medieval time. Problem of coinage in the early medieval time. Then write next point. We are still talking about economic life, right? Economic localism. So political localism, economic localism, both. Economic localism based on local exchange networks. Economic localism based on local exchange networks. Economic localism based on local exchange network. Have you ever heard of this system of market? Saturday market, Sunday market, Monday market. In urban areas too, but in urban centers we also have some remnants of the rural. In Delhi we have many villages. What about the villages? What about the countryside? Are you familiar with the market system? That older people, and some markets known particularly for certain commodities. So those kind of markets, that local people assembling together on a fixed day, and exchanging their goods and services. And today of course we have use of coins in those markets, but in early days it was more about barter system. And then we can also say, have you ever heard of this expression, self-sufficient village economy? Self-sufficient village economy, something that came to be diluted by the Britishers when we have economic integration under the colonial rule. So this economic localism ultimately created a condition for the emergence of self-sufficient village economies. And if we take note of this economic units, they were based on what is known as Jajmani system. That village artisans supported by the village peasants or village community in general, and village communities served by the village artisans, and whatever was exchanged, that was exchanged without use of coins. Have you seen the remnants or the system itself in your lifetime? I remember when I was kid in the recent past only. So we had village barber coming on a particular day, because he had other villages also to visit. Village barber, and then providing his services and not charging any money. Not charging any money. Have you seen village washerman also like this? Not. Today they don't provide actual services, but they still have their customary rights, traditional rights. So whenever there is any occasion like marriage or birth of a children, these people would come. Okay, we also have some rights. In my area they are called Pawnee. P-A, matlab Pawnee is the one who has a right, customary right to receive some gifts, जिसे पाने का हक है. तो लड़का वाला लड़की वाला, ठीक है. इन बारात you must have heard of, उसके साइड के पौनी, इसके साइड के अपौनी, ठीक है ना. We have gardeners also, we have pot makers, we have others. Have you seen this kind of people? Yes, we all are familiar with this. So these things are basically remnants of the same Jajmani system. So right here, next point now, after economic localism, and these are part of feudal system which is emerging. Right, emergence of self-sufficient village economies. Emergence of self-sufficient village economies. Even Karl Marx was confused about them. And the British ruler said that India is a country which lacks history. That means which lacks progress, and Indians lack sense of history. Because in villages nothing has changed. They have existed with the same lifestyle, with the same tendencies for centuries. So empires kept on rising, declining, but the villages continued in their usual fashion. Since colonial rulers with modern means of transport and communication and modern methods of governance and modern notions of governance, colonial regime came to have more power to penetrate the Indian village and villages or village economy. We at times blame or give credit, both depending upon our approaches, for breaking the isolation of such self-sufficient village economies, and that was good for national economic integration. And that's why we also give credit to the Britishers or colonial regime for creating some objective conditions for the rise and growth of modern nationalism. So what we have written, increase in the emergence of self-sufficient village economies, largely based on the Yajmani system, largely based on the Yajmani system, Y-A-J-M-A-N-I, Yajmani system. Even today this term is quite frequently used. जजमान, जैसे मैं बोलता हूं आप लोगों को, यू पीपुल आर जजमान, आप ही जजमान हो हमारे, ठीक ठीक है. जजमान इज व्हाट, पैटर्न. जजमान इज, मैं जजमान नहीं हूं, हाँ मैं, हाँ जो भी कह लो, ठीक है, लेकिन जजमान आप ही हो. तो जजमानो, अन्नदाताओं, लिख लो. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. I think how many points you have written? Okay, that is sufficient. Now write socio-cultural aspects. Socio-cultural aspects of this Yes, Indian feudalism. Now in society we have three important issues always: caste system, Varna system, then we have a status of women, and then the issue of slavery. These three issues are always there. Now once the basic structure of Indian society based on the Varna system was fixed in the later Vedic time, after that we have modification of this basic structure under different impulses. So when we have urbanization around 6th century BC, we have modification of this basic structure. What Buddha and Mahavira were trying to do, that is, they wanted to modify according to the changed circumstances. When we have arrival of foreigners and their incorporation into the Indian society, again we have modification. When we have the zenith of India's economic development, when we have early Christian centuries, at that time also we have some modifications, and now we are going to have modifications under feudal impulses. Until today we have nothing but modifications. So Sanskritization is modification. Raja Ram Mohan Rai and other reformers were trying to modify the basic structure, and this is what has been done also by the Indian Constitution. So Indian reformism from ancient to modern is all about modifying the basic structure of the Indian society that came to be based on Varna a system or Varna order. Is this clear? So now we understand feudalism, we understand feudal impulses. Now in what way Varna system can be modified due to feudal impulses? Any idea that you can have? Urbanization modified. Let me give you example. Because now Vaishyas were more prosperous and more ambitious. So we have notions related to what? Karma based distinctions being revived and dilution of birth based distinctions as part of heterodox sects like Buddhism and Jainism, which provided more respectful position for the Vaishyas, the classes associated with economic activities in their order of things. Isn't it? So when we have feudalism, in what way feudalism is likely to modify the basic structure? Do you think feudal lords are also even today, or the people with feudal mindset are also the people who are very particular about caste identities, or the people who are called castists? Most of the time big landlords, most of the time village notables. What do you think? That caste hierarchy and landed hierarchy both overlap in India. Upper caste, so-called upper caste with more lands, so-called lower classes with less lands. Do we find generally upper classes as part of landless laborers? We generally don't find. Exceptions may be there. So it means if feudalism is about possession of land, and caste system is about social hierarchy, and in feudalism also we are going to have landed hierarchy. So they have developed some connection between landed hierarchy and caste hierarchy. Isn't it? So have you mentioned this big heading, that is A political, B economic, C socio cultural? There write the first point. Modification of the Varna system. Modification of the Varna system. Modification of the Varna system due to emergence of a new basis, due to emergence of a new basis for social respect respect and recognition. Social respect and recognition. That was, or which was, you tell me, the possession of land. Possession of land. So how prestigious you are earlier decided by Varna order, now can also be decided by the possession of land. Clear? So now we have a very peculiar situation. Have you ever heard of a social class called Bhumihar? Bhumihar in the region of eastern UP and Bihar. Bhumihars in my area, that on the basis of my personal interaction I can say, they claim to be Brahmins. They claim to be Brahmins, that is Brahman ancestry, but somehow and at some stages of what we can say their history, they became landlords. So now they are landed Brahmanas. And being part of landed hierarchy, they also became part of the ruling class. And so that's why I have some Bhumihar friends who claim that we combine the best elements of both the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, and that's why we are Bhumihars. This is their claim. I am not neither supporting nor opposing this. But I think you are familiar with this social class. So we have now among Brahmanas landed Brahmins and landless Brahmins. That is Brahmanas who received land grants and the Brahmanas who could not be so successful or so fortunate and continued with their priestly and scholarly activities, being patronized by now a new class of Brahmanas also known as Bhumihars. Getting this idea? Now similar social class can be found in the region of western UP. Are you familiar with the people who call themselves Tyagi Brahmins? Tyagis. They also claim that they were Brahmins, but now they are landed elements and now they are Tyagi Brahmins. I am familiar with some organizations, caste organizations, and one organization is also about Tyagi Brahmanas to take care of their interests. So this is just a trend. So the way we can have now a new hierarchy, that is in place of caste hierarchy, Varna hierarchy, but though the new hierarchy was not completely delinked from the old hierarchy, because land grants were generally made to the people who are socially superior. Maybe a Shudra also receiving a land grant because of certain reasons, a special connection with the king. So now among Sudras also we can have distinctions. Landless Sudras who continued with their fortunes or misfortunes, and now new kind of Sudras receiving land grants and emerging as a new social class among Sudras, and with time claiming a new social status and being acknowledged as such. Clear? Then you must be knowing that in our culture there are certain professions which are hereditary. And hereditary land record keeping, because new kind of activities are emerging. Even today you can find one of my friend who is faculty claim that he belongs to a ruling dynasty which ruled sometime in the Maharashtra region long back, and he belonged to the same clan, and he knows about his he says that he belongs to the 37th generation or 38th generation of the same dynasty. And I asked him, how do you know about all these things? So he told me that people still come to us, getting this idea, and they find out details about us and they maintain record on hereditary basis, for which customary payments are made to them. Traditional record keepers, which were also associated with revenue administration of the Mughals. You may have heard of village patwaris, village kanungo. They were the people who kept on maintaining records for generations. Which piece of land belongs to home, no, this kind of details. So now we have new kind of occupations, and with those new kind of occupations we have new kind of classes. So how many of you are familiar with a social class known as Kayasth? Anyone? In my area, no, we have title like Srivastav, Kayasth. These people are supposed to be, with every caste we have some stereotypes and some sayings that Srivastav is supposed to be very intelligent. Why? Because of their exposure to learning, letters and numbers, both because they were associated traditionally with the task of record keeping. So even today they are supposed to be very intelligent. This is not, which is what I am saying, so I am not here glorifying any caste, but these are the observations related to the Indian society and different social classes. We have Karnik, Kayasthas. Have you ever familiar with Patel, Patil, Deshmukh? Who are these people? They were landlords in the southern areas. Khuts, Mukaddams, Chaudhuris in the medieval records. And all these people became what? With time they came to emerge as new social groups with their own caste identities and caste rules. So here I am not going to tell you the details, but I hope you understand what are the trends. So what we have written, modification of the Varna system. Then write the second point. There is someone who is asking me, they worship Chitragupta. Okay, people are familiar with them. कि सर शर्मा जी का लड़का क्यों फेमस है? Who is this शर्मा जी का लड़का जो सो फेमस है? मैं नहीं जानता तो सोच लो फेमस नहीं है. ठीक है, सो यू आर नॉट करेक्ट इन योर ऑब्जर्वेशन कि शर्मा जी का लड़का फेमस है. फेमस होता तो मैं भी जानता शर्मा जी के लड़के को. मैं नहीं जानता तो काहे का फेमस? विनोद शर्मा. Vinod is famous. Vinod is famous. I think this is something which has been borrowed from social media. Okay, you people are inspired by that, but we also try to stay in contact with social media and all those kind of things. But हमारी लाइफ की ट्रेजेडी ये है कि थोड़ा टाइम कम मिलता है. ठीक है, इसलिए शायद हम शर्मा जी के बेटे को नहीं जान पाए. वो बीच बीच में पता नहीं कब इतना फेमस हो गया कि आप लोग न सिर्फ जानने लगे बल्कि उसके बारे में बात भी करने लगे. सो राइट हियर व्हाट यू आर राइटिंग. Emergence of new social classes. Emergence of new social classes. Emergence of new social classes. Such as, write few names, such as Kayasthas, Karniks, Kayasthas, Karniks, Karnik, K-A-R-N-I-K, Patel, Patil, Deshmukh, Thakur, Ranak, Rawat, landed elements, Thakur, Ranak, Rawat, etc. Then write next classes. Next point. Next point you write. Do you know about guilds, trade guilds of the ancient time? Associations of artisans, merchants, traders for the protection of their economic interests. We call them Shrenis. Shrenis initially controlled economic activities. They took important economic decisions, which also included price fixation, adjudication of disputes. So we have heads of guilds, if you remember, in ancient time, mentioned by different names like Shreshthi, Shresthin, something like this. Sethi, So now this economic control with time was also about some sort of social control. And not only economic behavior of the members of the guild came to be controlled by these people, but also the social behavior. And the guilds started developing what we can say their own laws and rules related to marriages and what is called commensality, that is what interdining. By the time we have the Gupta age, we have their role somehow, sometime in administration also. That we have references that their heads were consulted by the rulers before taking important decisions. So all these things were happening. But they retained their economic importance, economic significance, so long as economy kept on prospering and progressing. But when we have decline of economy, so I think one day we talked about that silk weavers migrating from Lat to which place? But still retaining, yes, Mandsaur, but still retaining what? Their old social identity. So we have decline of guilds. That means decline of guilds and their economic functions because of the decline of economy. But they continued as social groups. And don't you think even today most of the caste groups in our subcontinent are named quite frequently on the basis of some economic activities? So that is called conversion of guilds into caste groups in the overall context of economic decline and localism. So right here, conversion of guilds into caste groups, conversion of guilds into caste groups, conversion of guilds into caste groups. Then write next. We understand this, we can easily understand. And then write emergence of local identities. Local identities. So when long distance trade and long distance relations are blocked, people start living in what? A small pockets, and they may develop their own characteristics. So emergence of local identities and caste groups. Local identities and caste groups. So are you familiar with this fact that in India many castes derive their name and origin from certain regions? Certain regions. So we have regional identities only when regions became important. Regions became important because we have regional cultural characteristics and formation of regional identities. So can you tell me any caste group deriving the name from region? A Kanyakubj Brahman. Kanyakubj is a place. And then go to the hilly areas, particularly go to Jammu. So people from Jammu, Jamwal. And in this way, many titles are derived from the names of the places with which people have been traditionally associated. So this is what? Regional identities, local identities. Then write next. And suppose if there is any question on the rise of caste system, then you can easily write an answer that how Varna system is being modified under feudal impulses. We cannot fix precise dates, practically not possible, but the trends are suggesting the same thing. Then write next point. And what is the next point? See, Mathi Brahman. Someone has given one example. Mathi Brahman. Mathil Brahman or Maithil Brahman. Maithil Brahman होगा ना? हाँ, Maithil Brahman. Yes. So Mithila is a region, area. So Brahmanas belonging to that area, forming their regional identities in the absence of what we can say long distance connections and contacts. Then right next point, proliferation. Proliferation, Proliferation, proliferation of castes. Proliferation of castes. This is a phenomenon which is mentioned like this. What is proliferation? When we have rapid increase in the number. So you may have heard of nuclear proliferation. Then we also have the concept of nuclear non-proliferation. So proliferation of castes is something that is supposed to be an important historical process in the Indian history, which is a long-term historical process, that ancient time and as well as medieval time. But in medieval time we have what is called proliferation, and we have many factors responsible for this. So one such factor was in the ancient time Aryanization. I think you are familiar with this concept of Aryanization, that is a spread of Aryas and they coming in contact with other people, that is tribal groups or people with non-Aryan origin, and non-Aryan origin people with non-Aryan origin modeling their society on the basis of Aryan patterns. So now they are educated classes Brahmanas, but now these new Brahmanas are not going to enjoy the equal social status than the at par with the old Brahmanas. So we have new social classes. Then intervarna marriages of both Anuloma and Pratiloma types. They are also responsible for proliferation of castes. Then we have incorporation of foreign ruling groups, localism and conversion of guilds, all together create a context in which we have what we have just written, proliferation of castes in the Indian subcontinent. So the journey which started with 4 varnas, you must be knowing. Today how many castes and subcastes we find in the subcontinent? At times we find it difficult to count. Our census officials are quite busy in counting. You may be knowing about caste based census. Then write the next point. See, what about untouchability? It became more popular, less popular, or came to be eliminated or eradicated when we have feudal tendencies? Yes, increasing. Yes. So right, increasing tendencies towards caste discrimination and untouchability. Increasing tendencies towards caste discrimination and untouchability. That is called asprishyata. You may have heard of this term. Asprishyata. Mathur of Mathura also. So this Mathur from Mathura. Someone is saying here Mathur of Mathura. Maybe Mathura origin people known as Mathur. Then write the next point. Let us move beyond this caste and varna and let us now take note of a new social practice, that was slavery. It was not new, it was old in the Vedic time. So don't you think here in the overall context, when we have more and more people with resources now, it means we have decentralization and diffusion of resources. So there will be increasing popularity of slavery or not? And that's why in the medieval sources, early medieval sources, we have increasing number of references to slaves, and we also have more types of the slaves mentioned in the contemporary sources. So we are not going to write a specific number, simply write increasing popularity of slavery, increasing popularity of slavery. Clear? Now write next point. What about the status of women? What do you think? Decline or rise? Decline. Why? more resources on the part of the feudal classes who started living luxurious life, and women also came to be perceived as a part of the luxurious life. So we have increasing instances of polygamy, polygyny, greater emphasis on what is called child marriage. So, and we also have increasing references to sati. So all these practices, which are generally indicative of the poor condition or status of women, they became more popular during this time. Clear? So just in the next point, right? Declining position of women, which is evident from declining position of women, declining position of women, which is evident from the increasing instances of, which is evident from the increasing instances of right in a series, increasing instances of polygyny, POLYGYNY. Polygyny is what? Polygamy. But when we have more wives, that is called polygyny. Polygamy is a general term. Polygamy, gamy is marriage. So more than one marriage on the part of anybody, men and women, can be called polygamy. But when we have more than one wives, no, that is called polygyny, and more than one husband, that is called polyandry. Clear? So here we have increasing instances of polygyny. In bracket you can write, just for simplification, polygamy. Feudal classes, no, marriage became part of their lifestyle, and they were beyond what we can say considerations related to subsistence, because they were now big landlords. So polygamy. Child marriage. Child marriage. Anyone here victim of child marriage? No? Anyone? No. If you are, come forward. Don't point to others. So, no one is victim of child marriage here. Okay. So, child marriage. Dowry system. Dowry system. Now dowry started becoming matter of social respect and prestige. That attitude still continues. Dowry system. Parda system. So you have many women in your house, then you need to control them. Parda system. Parda system. And even sati. And even sati. So these are some developments which are suggesting that the feudal tendencies were not serving any cause of women, rather they were creating more difficulties, more problems for the women. And generally in landed societies, agricultural societies, societies with joint family system and large family connections, we have subordination and operation of women on a higher side. And now one more thing, that is the concept of family honor. Concept of family honor, parivarik pratishtha, you must be knowing, and that came to be vested in the body of women. That was also a reason women came to be controlled more vigorously. So even today we have this kind of sayings, you must be knowing, that the connection between women and the family honor and the respect of the family. So male members of the family doing anything and everything, but that is not affecting the honor of the family. But female behavior and female conduct is something. So they became what we can say custodians of family honor, and that's why they also became the targets of the invaders. Or in any conflict, even today, women is supposed to be the worst victim. Because if you want to demoralize or target your enemies, people used to target their women. And that is what women became more vulnerable in any kind of a conflict with a time, because it was, if you want to cause loss of property, that is destroy the fort, and if you want to cause loss of honor, or if you want to disgrace your enemy, these notions are feudal notions. Dishonor and disgrace the women of the enemy. It is something like this. And that's why you must be knowing that most of the slangs in male dominated cultures are directed towards women. Slangs are what? They are intents of committing violence, if not the actual violence, which are shared whenever we have hostilities. So slangs are directed towards women or men? Women in most of the male dominated cultures. So right here, next point, concept of family honor, concept of or idea of family honor leading to the confinement and subordination of women. Concept of family honor leading to the confinement and subordination of women. औरत घर से बाहर चली गई, इज्जत घर से बाहर चली गई. You may have heard of this kind of observations. And here we find the role of Gandhi in liberating the Indian women. That Gandhi provided a just cause to Indian women to move out of their houses. And that was participating in the Indian national movement. Do you really need break? So have it. So now write the next point. What was the last point? That is family honor and yes, subordination and confinement of women. Then see, rise and decline both can be noticed in a particular situation. So on the one hand we have declining tendencies, but some new rights came to be acknowledged. So right here, expansion of the scope of next point, expansion of the scope of the personal property of the women. Personal property of the women. You may have heard of the concept of Istri Dhan, personal property of the women. That was not in land but in movable properties, particularly gifts given by relatives. So earlier it was mainly gift from the mother side, but now even from the father side. So that came to be included. Then write next. Acknowledgement of the right of widows. In contemporary sources we find this acknowledgement of the right of widows on the property of the deceased husband, on the property of the deceased husband. It was not full but partial, but still it was very important development, possibly due to the demands of feudal societies, because most of the time in the feudal hierarchy preserving the property in the family was very important challenge, because every time overlords were looking for confiscation of the property of the vassals. So if the vassal dies, king is always there to confiscate the property. So how to retain the property in the same family? So widows were also given some rights. Then write next point. Next point you write right to make adoption. Right to make adoption conceded to the widows. Conceded to the widows. Right to make adoption conceded to the widows. You may be knowing about Maharani Lakshmi Bai and the dispute that led to her participation in the revolt of 1857. So here in our culture, adopted son and natural son both have similar rights. Once the fact of adoption is established, there is no difference between a natural son and an adopted son. Lord Dalhousie was making this difference. No? That's why we have, that is also seen as an interference into Indian culture. So one important thing about adoption was, or still is, that even widow can make adoption. So the family can still continue. Something similar had been done by Maharani Lakshmi Bai, which was not being acknowledged by the British authorities. Then right, next point. This is socio-cultural. Now let us move beyond women and let us take note of some cultural tendencies. So right, emergence of regional cultural units. Emergence of regional cultural units. How many regional cultural units you can identify in India, a country with lot of cultural diversity? You may have heard of some sayings, ki every coast pe pani badle, something like this. And every Vani is speech, that is language. But still, despite all these diversities, some regional cultural units have been identified, like Bengal, Bihar, UP. Bihar, UP almost the same, but then languages are somehow different. Braj Bhasa in the western UP, and if you go to Bihar, you find Bhojpuri, you find Maithili, you find others, then Bengali. And then people of Rajasthan somehow different from the people of UP. What about Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala? Can we identify the states of modern Indian Union also as regional cultural units? UPSC has asked question on this, that is political boundaries, cultural boundaries should be coterminous or not. Have you seen this question? Most of the time questions are based on, let me tell you, general awareness, not as specific facts and details. कि डेटा रट गया इसके बारे में उसके बारे में. So what do you think? What basis we have adopted after independence for the redrawal of state boundaries or restructuring of India, Indian Federation or Union? Linguistic. But that was adopted after a lot of agitation and agitation, both. Hesitation on the part of the government and agitation on the part of the people. Nehru Committee had recommended linguistic reorganization of states. Language is a very important attribute of culture. So cultural units, we can say that our states are also cultural units. So whatever differences can be noticed today, they started making their appearance in the early medieval time. That people started differing in their languages, in their manners. Before that, whatever sources we have, we find greater degree of uniformity. That Sanskrit was known to everyone, almost, not to the masses, but to the classes. So here in north we have Kalidas, in south we have, if you remember, Ravikirti. Here we have Prayag Prasasti, there we have Ahol Prasasti. Both are found in Sanskrit. Sanskrit and Tamil. Beyond that area we have Tamil area, but script was almost same. You may have heard of Tamil Brahmi. Here also we have, throughout India in the Ashokan edicts we generally find Brahmi script. Prakrit was spoken by the people, common people, masses, till the Gupta time, because in the dramas of Gupta time, elite character have been shown as speaking Sanskrit, but the folk characters have been shown as speaking Prakrit. Satavahana inscriptions are found in Prakrit. So though we cannot construct a uniform system in the ancient time, yet we can identify elements of uniformity on the higher side because of the use of Sanskrit by the classes, use of Prakrit by the masses, uniformity of script. But with time, we have now different regional languages, regional cultural units. So one important dimension of this, that is was localism. I hope you understand this. And feudal localism, regional political units and political formations also impose what is called cultural uniformity. So suppose if a state is there and which is ruling over a particular area, so in this particular area we can notice broader cultural uniformity because the rulers are same, their culture is the same, ideas are same, institutions are the same, events are same, historical experiences are the same. So all these things can ultimately create a condition for broader cultural uniformity. So political fragmentation, localism, combined with economic localism and emergence of feudalism, all this created a context in which what we have written, emergence of regional cultural units. Clear? Then write the next point. Right, emergence of vernaculars. Emergence of vernaculars. Vernacular means local languages, vernaculars. So there is a book in Bengal written in Sanskrit, Geet Govinda, written in Bengal but still written in Sanskrit. It was written in 12th century. It was written in 12th century. We have Kalhan writing in the same century. Raj Tarangini is writing in Kashmir but writing in Sanskrit. 12th century text, Raj Tarangini, some of you may be familiar. But these are the last, we can say, masterpieces of classical Sanskrit literature. After this, we have vernacular literature almost everywhere. And after this, we also have Bhakti movement. And Bhakti literature was mainly in vernaculars. So if we take note of Maharashtra Dharma, that is Maharashtra Bhakti, there we have development of Marathi. If we take note of Bhakti movement in Bengal, Assam, we have development of Assamese, we have development of. So this is one important consideration or one important contribution of Bhakti movement, that it fostered the growth of what we can say regional languages or vernaculars. I think few years back there was a question about Bhakti literature. Do you remember this question? Last year, Bhakti literature. What was the question again? Even I don't remember exact words, but at least you should have a sense of familiarity. हाँ, याद नहीं आ रहा, that is okay. देखा तो है, ये तो expressions दो कम से कम. But whenever I ask any question कि देखा है तो you are blank, हाँ क्या, किधर, कहाँ, था भी क्या, ठीक है. So it was this expression that made you to deliver a long lecture in the first half of this class. And evolution of Bhakti literature or nature of Bhakti literature or nature of Bhakti literature. That was evaluate the nature of Bhakti. So that evaluate the nature of Bhakti movement and its contribution to Indian culture. Someone has shared this question. So when we take note of the nature of Bhakti movement, evaluate the nature of Bhakti movement and its contribution to Indian culture. So the whole Bhakti movement, if this was the question, I think, but this was on literature. Evaluate the nature of Bhakti movement. Which year this question has been asked? Maybe repeated. But we have question on Bhakti literature also. So Bhakti movement is very important. So we can say that Bhakti literature was democratic, egalitarian, all the attributes of Bhakti movement. But at the same time, we can also say that Bhakti literature was mainly in vernacular languages. And if we acknowledge the contribution of Bhakti movement, we also acknowledge contribution in terms of the rise and growth of vernacular languages. 2021. Because, sir, please explain lack of political unity and the imperial experiment in political aspect of feudalism. We are talking about socio-cultural aspect. Let us finish this, then we can talk about this aspect. But let me tell you that lack of political unity, that India was divided politically, that is lack of political unity. An imperial experiment means what? We don't have big empires like Mauryan Empire and Gupta Empire. That is very simple meaning. Go with the common sense of the term. Don't try to find a special meaning in English terms. At times that also creates confusion. So a peasant is a peasant. An agriculturalist is an agriculturalist. Now don't bother yourself, sir, what is difference between a peasant and an agriculturalist? This is GS. You are not a student of law. That fine differences are needed. What is difference between a trader and a merchant? Don't bother about this kind of differences. Somehow both are connected with tertiary activities. If you understand this much, that will serve the purpose. Getting this idea? So life is troubled only by और मेनली बाय दिस इंटरप्राइज की ठीक से समझना है. व्हाट इज दिस ठीक से समझना? ठीक है, वो जो समझ रहे हो ना, पॉलिटिकल डिसयूनिटी इन जनरल सेंस ऑफ द वर्ड्स, दैट इज लैक ऑफ पॉलिटिकल यूनिटी इज पॉलिटिकल disunity, and lack of empire building processes is lack of imperial experiments. No special meaning attached. Is this clear? Evaluate the nature of the Bhakti movement and its contribution to the Indian culture. So contribution to the Indian culture, one such contribution is literature, and everything. In all art forms we can find contribution. Music, dance, drama, everywhere we have the role of Bhakti. Literature, sculptural art. Think of any form of literary expression, any form of artistic expression, you will find the impact of Bhakti movement. I don't think that in order to understand this you need to read those unnecessary guides and facts and details. That is not the case. Experience the Indian culture. Don't forget, we all are part of Indian culture. We are not part, rather we are product of Indian culture. There are so many things about our personalities which are related to Indian culture. Not so many things, almost everything. We just have to be observant of our own self and the culture to which we belong. What kind of tendencies are there? Then write what we have written, emergence of Varna oculars. Okay, that literature question was asked in 2018, and this movement question has been asked in 2021. The 2018 question was कि the Bhakti literature received a remarkable reorientation with the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Discuss. Bhakti spirit reflected in literature. So there comes a point when it becomes difficult to differentiate the nature of Bhakti movement from the nature of Bhakti literature. Both are the same. Then write next point. Now something negative also. Right, development of some sort of inward looking attitude. Development of some sort of inward, INWARD, inward looking attitude. What is inward looking attitude? That we are sufficient, we need nothing else, and a sense of, right, and a sense of self sufficiency or complacency, a sense of self sufficiency or complacency. Whenever we are on the verge of decline, we start thinking like this, because now fresh input is blocked. Cultures are dynamic, knowledge system is dynamic, everything in this world is dynamic. If in this dynamic world, if you start behaving in a static manner, naturally you are going to witness decline. So there was a sense of cultural arrogance also, that we are sufficient. We generally do not find foreign texts being translated into Indian languages. They have not been translated. We have many foreigners translating Indian texts into foreign languages. It means there was some sense that we don't need knowledges acquired by other cultures and civilizations. We are sufficient. That was the early medieval time. And this tendency, which is related to some sort of cultural arrogance and complacency, has been noticed by a person who visited India during this time and whose description forms a very important basis for reconstructing the Indian history of that time. Can you tell me the name of that person? India through the eyes of foreigners, very important. So from Megasthenes to Max Muller, and UPSC has asked question about the Chinese travelers and the Arab travelers. One such traveler was Ibn Battuta, but another before Ibn Battuta I have given you the hint, Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni. Have you heard of Al-Biruni? And his famous work Kitabul Hind, Tahqiq-e-Hind. The book was completed sometime in 1030 or 35. Whether 30 or 35 is not important. What is important is the first half of the 11th century. And this book suggests a lot of things related to Indian culture, and Al-Biruni is particularly known for his unbiased and scientific observation of Indian society and Indian culture. So don't you think that the way they are asking questions, now Al-Biruni and his description may be more important than the rulers? Al-Biruni is India. They can ask you questions related to Kitab al-Hind. They can give you statements related to Kitab al-Hind. Which statement about this book is correct? The way they can give you a statement about Artha Shastra. So things are changed. Things are changed in history. The problem is that we are not changing our approaches. We are still taking history as we used to take it earlier, that it is just about rulers and some dates, some details and some events. That is not the case. History has become the study of entire culture. So I think you understand this and you don't go with the popular imagination about history. ठीक है कि हिस्ट्री में क्या ही रखा है. लेट मी टेल यू, इसलिए नहीं कि मैं हिस्ट्री का टीचर हूं, पढ़ा तो मैंने और भी डिसिप्लिन है, बताऊंगा नहीं, ठीक है ना, ठीक है, लेकिन हिस्ट्री से बाहर कुछ भी नहीं है. एवरीथिंग इज पार्ट ऑफ ए हिस्ट्री. तो हिस्ट्री में क्या है? हिस्ट्री में सब कुछ है. विदाउट हिस्ट्री वी आर नथिंग. हिस्ट्री गिव्स अस आवर आइडेंटिटी. ये वैसे ही है जैसे कि आपकी मेमोरी अगर खो जाए. हैव यू एवर हर्ड ऑफ this kind of diseases, memories? Or in the old Bollywood movies, we generally find this kind of stories in which heroes or heroines lost their memories. And then what happened to their lives? And then suddenly memories also used to come back. So first strike led to the loss of memory, second strike led to the revival of the memory. Meanwhile, life had changed. So the same will happen. You have left your home, you have come to the coaching. Now that is part of the past, that is part of your history. So history is basically collective social memory. What will happen to your life when your memory is lost? Will you ever be able to reach your home back from coaching? The same happens. You forget history, you can forget your destination. And that's why we elect governments to make our future, and they started by writing history. Have you ever heard of any discipline being such controversial? No. History is changing. We think that history is a static, history can't be changed. History में क्या है? कुछ facts and details and let us mug them up. That is not the case. Have you ever seen that Indian government in changing polity or sociology or geography? No. But quite often we have talked about what? A changing history. Why? And this is not only about this government, it is also about other previous governments. History is so important. You are not realizing this, you are not experiencing life. So move out of those popular notions related to the discipline कि सिर्फ dates और details होते हैं. इसमें करना क्या है? बस उसको रट लेना है. That is oversimplification. History is not a task. History can be utilized as a tool. History can be utilized as a tool for preparing general studies. Because history is nothing but general studies of the past societies. So we study almost everything in history, economy, polity, society, and questions are of interdisciplinary nature. Don't you think that history can give you interdisciplinary insights into the questions? Just have the historical approach, your answers elsewhere are also going to be more refined, more appropriate. So here now, instead of talking about kingdoms and empires, now I think we should talk about Al-Biruni and his description of India. And then merely this will not serve the purpose. Al-Biruni was from Central Asia and he wrote a book, and the title of the book is this. Let us now also talk about what he talks about India. Megasthenes about India, Al-Biruni about India. All these things can be very important in PT and in main both examination for essay writing also. So now we are gradually shifting our attention from Indian feudalism. Now we are moving beyond Indian feudalism, but we have already created context. So what we have written in the last point? That is inward looking attitude and a sense of cultural complacency, right? Which has been noticed even by Al-Biruni. You can find different spellings also, but go with the simple one. Al-Biruni. Now Al-Biruni's India itself is a topic for us. So now do one thing, make a heading, write Al-Biruni. 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 Right, Al-Biruni, a Central Asian, let us introduce him like this. Al-Biruni, a Central Asian astronomer. So he was a scientist. Al-Biruni, a Central Asian astronomer, who later on received the patronage of Mahmud Ghazni. is known for Al-Biruni, a Central Asian astronomer who later on received the patronage of Mahmud Ghazni, is known for his unbiased and scientific account of the Indian civilization, particularly about the Indian society, and sciences. So since he was a scientist, he was more interested in scientific themes. His famous work known as Kitab al-Hind. We have this way also, Kitab ul Hind, or Tahqiq is inquiry, Tahqiq-e-Hind. His famous work known as Kitab Kitabul Hind Tahqiq-e Hind, completed in completed in completed in completed in the first half of the 11th century, first half of the 11th century. In bracket, if you want to be precise about the date, you can write 1035. Completed in the first half of the 11th century, 1135. Please note that while writing answers, don't be very specific about such dates. Even if you know, ignore them. So the impact of the Battle of Plassey, so no need to write ki Battle of Plassey which took place on 23rd June 1757. Examiners know these kind of things. Stick to the impact. Don't try to educate your examiner about the date of the Battle of Plassey. But reality is that since we don't have valid points, we start writing. We start writing in anxiety and we start presenting what starters before the real, what we call meal or course, main course. Yes, main a course. So serve the main course. Examiners don't need a starters. Main course of your answer. So use this kind of expressions: quarter, in the beginning, towards the, and in the middle. So Battle of Plassey in the middle of the 18th century. That will serve the purpose. That will serve the purpose, and this is supposed to be more sophisticated style of writing in which facts, details and data somehow be drawn. So when we read any piece of writing, don't you think that whenever that piece of writing is packed with lot of details, we tend to avoid those details because we are interested in what? Something deeper, something more meaningful than those details. So these aspects are part of what we can say mature answer writing. So his famous work Kitabul Hind Tahqiq-e Hind, completed in the first half of the 11th century, 1035, is supposed to have been based on the following. Supposed to have been based on the following. So knowledge is important, but sources of knowledge also important, isn't it? Whether those sources are authentic or not. Al-Biruni was of course a stranger in Indian society, and he was trying to learn about the Indian society. So what were the sources for his understanding? So right here, first point. Direct observation. So he had come to India, unlike Max Muller. Direct observation, as he is supposed to have visited some parts of the Indian subcontinent, particularly Punjab and the Northwest. So he was directly exposed to India, Indian people, and he made observations. See, he had accompanied whom? Mahmud Ghazni, his master. Mahmud Ghazni invaded India 17 times. We are going to talk about these invasions very soon, in the first quarter of the 11th century. And since he was patronized by Mahmud Ghazni, he accompanied Mahmud Ghazni on some of his expeditions. So Mahmud Ghazni took interest in looting and plundering activities, and this man, a scholar, scientist, started making observations about Indian culture and civilization. Getting this idea? So both coming together but different objectives, and today remembered also quite differently. Then second point you write. His conversations, his conversations with his conversations with the his conversations with the Indian soldiers and commanders, Indian soldiers and commanders, Indian soldiers and of commanders of Mahmud Ghazni, Mahmud Ghazni. So Mahmud Ghazni was interested in Indian resources, both men and material, which he wanted to utilize in his Central Asian and West Asian expeditions. So he appointed Indians as soldiers. One of his famous commander was Tilak. So these people, while serving Mahmud Ghazni, it is believed that came in contact with this scholar, and this scholar had contact with them, conversation with them. They also told something about India, which forms the basis for this book. Then write third. Third you write, his study of the Indian classical, his study of the Indian classical texts, texts, his study of the Indian classical texts. He was not aware of Sanskrit, so how did he read or study the Indian classical texts? So long before his arrival and his birth, many Indian classical texts had been translated into Arabic. The Abbasid caliphs of Baghdad and the Arabs in Sindh took interest in Indian culture, and they translated many classical works, including Aryabhatiya of Aryabhat, Birhat Jatak, Laghu Jatak, Panch Tantra, Ashtang Hirdayika, Charak Samhita, Susrut Samhita. All these books were translated into Arabic, and that led to the spread of Indian knowledge westward. So when we talk about Indian knowledge, you must be knowing that Indian knowledge, which was hitherto confined to India, was served to the rest of the world through Arabs or through Arabic. So Indian decimal system, you must be knowing, today followed universally. Indian numerals, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and many things, many concepts. Through Arabs, these concepts reached the Europe. So Arabs were basically spreaders of knowledge at one point of time, and they showed interests, particularly when the Arabs were under the influence of the people who are known as Mutazilites, that is the rationalists. And these rationalists were interested in the knowledges produced by different cultures and civilizations, and they were generally not guided by this notion that all the knowledge is confined to a particular book which belong to their religion. This kind of notions develop when we develop orthodox tendencies. Otherwise, in different parts of the world, people have different experiences while solving the problems of existence, and all those things can be what? The treasure for the whole humanity. So something like this approach was followed by the Mutazilites. So they established translation houses at Baghdad. You must have heard of Baitul Hikmah. We have some enlightened caliphs like Harun Rashid or Al Mamun. And in those houses, it was like Asiatic Society of Bengal. When the Britishers came, they also took interest in Indian knowledge. So, but their interest was motivated by colonialism. we can say. It was not simply this for the sake of curiosity and the knowledge. And that's why we have a very strong critique of Orientalism that was taking interest in Oriental civilizations. Edward Said, have you heard of this person? Some of you may be knowing, but forget about all these things. Simply know that the Britishers tried to know India because they had to rule India. Arabs were not ruling over India. They were just ruling, what we can say, on a very small part of India, that was a Sindh, but they still took interest in Indian knowledge and translated many classical texts into Arabic, and this is supposed to be the most important consequence of India's contact with the Arabs, which came to be established politically, socially, after the Arab conquest of Sindh. But even before this, we have Arab traders getting settled down on the western coast, that is Maharashtra, Kerala, all those regions. But in the south, interaction was mainly through trade. In the north, interaction was mainly military. Is this clear? So, right, his study of the Indian classical texts, which had been translated into Arabic, in the earlier times, which had been translated into Arabic in the earlier times, largely through the efforts, EFFORTS, efforts of the Abbasid, Abbasid, SID, Abbasid caliphs, CALIPHS, Abbasid caliphs of Baghdad, Abbasid caliphs of Baghdad. Then, right, we are not talking about them now, but we can talk about the texts particularly which were translated, some major texts. Right, in this context, some major texts, were, have you heard of Arya Bhatt? And the book of Arya Bhatt is called Arya Bhattiya. So Arya Bhattiya, such books are written within inverted comma and underlined. Arya Bhattiya of Arya Bhatt. Arya Bhatt, a resident of modern Patliputra. Nowadays there is a debate going on, that is political, that Chanakya belongs to India or Pakistan. That is Takshashila. Some statements made by politicians of both these countries you may have heard of. That Iqbal also, whether Iqbal belonged to India or Pakistan. Chanakya belonged to India or Pakistan. Likewise, if we take note of this, pardon? Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of England. Yes, about him also claims are being made by both India and Pakistan. You just become successful in your life and you will find many people making claims on you. No, many coachings also making claims on you. At times you people also behave in a very selfish manner. That you are invited or purchased. I don't know. आपका करप्शन तो पहले दिन से शुरू हो जाता है. The moment you qualify, you become corrupt. पढ़ते हमारे यहाँ, बोलते हो यहाँ से पढ़े वहाँ. हम लोग देखते रहते हैं अपनी आंखों के सामने. अच्छा, ये शकल तो जानी पहचानी लग रही है. ठीक है, आपने और जगह भी पढ़े होंगे, but we have this kind of people also attending coachings regularly and then saying no, I did not attend any coaching. So basically you are misguiding. So, but I was in contact with this sir. And he always guided me, inspired me for the higher goals in life. रही बात हमारी, तो हमें तो पता भी नहीं चलता कि कौन क्वालिफाई करता है कौन नहीं करता। हम लोग अपने एटीट्यूड में रहते हैं। आई डोंट नो योर नेम्स। अगर कल को आप में से कोई क्वालिफाई कर जाता है, हमें कब पता चलेगा? आप बताओगे यू डोंट हैव माई नंबर। ठीक है, शक्लें हम लोग इतनी दिन में देखते हैं कि कोई याद नहीं रहती। बात समझ रहे ना? तो इंस्टीट्यूट वाले अगर पकड़ कर आपको ला भी दें तो हम आपको शायद पहचान ना पाए, जैसे ये है, इसको पढ़ाया हमने। एंड पीपल हार्डली बिलीव दिस, दे कीप ऑन अप्रोचिंग अस। तो आप तो कोचिंग में पढ़ाते हो, बहुत आईएएस आईपीएस से जान पहचान होगी। हम सोचते हैं किसी से नहीं है। ठीक, किसी से नहीं है। दिस इज आवर प्रोफेशन। कल को आप हो जाओगे तो आप हमें जानते हो, मैं आपको नहीं जानता। तो ऐसे कितने होंगे हमें नहीं पता। ठीक है, वो हो सकता हो कि, हालांकि सिलेक्शन के बाद आप भी क्यों याद रखोगे हमें? ठीक है, यू हैव नो मोटिव। ठीक है ना? लेकिन फिर भी लेट अस एज्यूम टू, इन ऑर्डर टू फील गुड, कि सिलेक्शन के बाद आप हमें याद रखोगे। लेकिन आप तो हमें कभी याद ही नहीं होते, ना कभी याद रहोगे। ठीक है, तो पीपल जनरली डोंट बिलीव, नहीं ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, इतने दिन से पढ़ा, किसी से तो पहचान होगी। नहीं है भाई, क्लियरली नहीं है, एंड दिस इज अ रियलिटी, नहीं है। ठीक है, कभी कभी कोई ऐसे ही टकरा जाता है, कभी कभी कोई ऐसे ही, कोई दूसरे आके बताते हैं कि वहां बात हो रही थी आपकी, तो वहां का वो आपको जानता है, आप एक बार फोन करते हो, सॉरी वो नहीं हो सकता। तो इट हैपेंस नहीं। तो हम भी कह सकते हैं कि हम तो आईएएस आईपीएस पे ध्यान ही नहीं देते। आप लोग कौन होते हो? नहीं, एटीट्यूड कहते हैं इसको। So we exactly don't know, but coaching walas, our management, they have your records, your profile, your pictures, your forms. So वो तो आपको ढूंढ निकालते हैं, बेटा पढ़े तो थे तुम यहीं से। ठीक है, यहीं से पढ़े थे, और हमें ये भी याद है जब तुम पहली बार आए थे। ठीक है, लिखना भी नहीं आता था तुमको। ठीक है, तो हमने सिखाया। तो इट हैपेंस। तो क्या लिखा आपने अभी? आर्य भटिया, देन राइट, आर्यभट्ट वाज फ्रॉम पाटलिपुत्रा। वी कैन से हियर देयर इज नो कंट्रोवर्सी, आर्यभट्ट फ्रॉम पाटलिपुत्रा। चाणक्य लिटिल controversial, but see the history of these two countries not divided. So what is harm? Both can claim a legacy, but the problem with Pakistan is that the idea of Pakistan is against this. Getting this idea? Pakistan was created by superimposing an artificial construct of what we can say religious nationalism upon some parts of the subcontinent. So now how can you claim the heritage? You fought against the same heritage. ठीक है, अब ये और बात है कि अब आपको कुछ सूझ रहा हो, अलग चीज है। वो तो जिन्ना को 2 महीने के बाद ही सूझ गया था कि नाउ पाकिस्तान हैज बीन created, now no religious difference, everyone is going to live in Pakistan. So what was problem in living earlier in United India? So the ideological orientation or the ideological foundation which led to the creation of Pakistan, suggests that Pakistan cannot make claim on who? Chanakya. ठीक है, because the whole idea of Pakistan was based on Islam, and Chanakya had nothing to do with Islam. So you disowned what we can say this legacy. So now there is no point in making a claim to this legacy. So Harun Rashid, yes, Harun Rashid Al Mamun, no, these were the caliphs who were basically associated with translation of these works. So Arya Bhatia, then right next, Brihad. Brihad is Bada. Brihad Jataka. Brihad Jataka. Who? Another scientist. Varah Mihir. Varah Mihir. Laghu Jatak. लघु जातका, सेम ऑथर, बराह मिहिर, लघु जातक, बराह मिहिर। पंचतंत्रा, who is the author of Panchtantra? Is a book on beast fables. What are beast fables? That is stories which are meant for kids, children, in order to impart them moral education. So, Panchtantra, who is the author of Panchtantra? Vishnu Sharma. Vishnu Shraman, Vishnu Sharma. Then write Charak. Charak Samhita. This is book on Indian medicine. Charak Samhita. Indian medicine. Then write Sushrut Samhita. That is book on surgery. Sushrut Samhita. ETC. ETC कर दीजिए. ETC. So if we take note of cultural consequences of Arab invasion on India, this is the most important. That is what? Arabs acquiring Indian knowledge through translation of Indian texts into Arabic and spreading the same further westward. That is, that knowledge also reached Europe. Then change your paragraph and write. Some of the important observations made by Al-Biruni. Some of the important observations made by Al-Biruni regarding Indian society and sciences. Al-Biruni regarding Indian society and sciences are mentioned below. Indian society and sciences are mentioned below. Clear? Write the first point. Write Varna system. So he was familiar with Varna system. Varna system, including the system of untouchability. Including the system of untouchability. In bracket write Chandalas. Chandalas. So Faxian, who visited India in the 4th century AD during the reign of Chandragupta II Vikramaditya, has also talked about untouchability. This man also talking about untouchability, and he is talking about the same social groups. That is what? Chandalas. So Fahian talking about Chandalas, he is also talking about a Chandala. Chandala term is used even today. Are you familiar with this Chandal? Quite often, in our childhood, people used to call a Chandal hai ye. And then there is something that is called Chandal Chokdi. Then something derogatory we can say is still what we can say is still used in a derogative manner, that is derogatory use of the term Chandala. Then second point to write. Sati system. He noticed it. Sati a system. Sati a system. Then write next. Since he was scientist, his more famous observations are related to Indian sciences. So write Indian subcontinent has, this is his observation, Indian subcontinent has emerged out of ocean. Indian subcontinent has emerged out of ocean. It means he talks about geological formation of the Indian subcontinent. So just mention here, he talks about the geological formation of the Indian subcontinent. Geological formation of the Indian subcontinent. So you maybe knowing about some theories related to formation of Indian subcontinent, and one such theory says that Indian subcontinent has emerged out of ocean, because in the Dakkani Plateau we find fossils of some oceanic creatures. We don't know by what method Al-Biruni reached this conclusion, but Al-Biruni says this. Then right, next point. After geology, what is there? That is, on the surface we have geomorphological features. Right here, geomorphological features, geomorphological features of the subcontinent. Geomorphological features of the सबकॉन्टिनेंट. सर अपने राइट साइड वाली रो के लास्ट सीट वाले बच्चे, सर आप, अच्छा ठीक है, आपने आपके की जगह आपने लिख दिया है. सर आपके राइट साइड वाली रो, राइट साइड वाली रो ये हो गई के लास्ट सीट वाले बच्चे. आप लोग हो गए, बात कर रहे हैं. अच्छा, लास्ट रो वाले बच्चे बात कर रहे हैं, बट अलबर्नी की तरफ पता कैसे चला इसको? पूरी क्लास दिखती है. अच्छा ओके, क्लास में से कोई बैठा हुआ उसने मैसेज किया. अच्छा, आप भी लिख सकते हैं इसके ऊपर. कौन है भाई? सवाल ये नहीं है, सवाल ये कि बात कर रहे हैं तो करने दो ना. ठीक है, हियर वी ऑल आर ग्रोन अप. ठीक है ना. और डिसिप्लिन इज समथिंग दैट इज सेल्फ इन्फोर्स्ड. अब आप उस लेवल पे नहीं हो कि आपको डंडे लेकर पढ़ाया जाए, वरना हमें पता है मास्टरों के तरीके क्या होते थे. ठीक है ना. तो व्हेन वी ट्राई टू डिसिप्लिन द क्लास, व्हाट हैपेंस दैट आवर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विद द क्लास इंक्रीजेस एंड देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ हॉस्टिलिटी. हम आपके लिए एक आदमी को डांटना शुरू करते हैं, मान लीजिए हमने डांटना शुरू कर दिया, द होल क्लास इज ऑफेंडेड समहाउ. हम किसके लिए डांट रहे हैं उस आदमी को? पूरे क्लास के लिए. So finally we teachers are left alone in this enterprise, neither supported by a student nor supported by management. So finally we rely upon what? This technique कि भाई ऐसा है, आप पढ़े लिखे grown up लोग हो, you can decide your priorities. क्लास आना है नहीं आना है, पढ़ना है नहीं पढ़ना है, क्लास में बैठ के क्या करना है. ठीक है. I will try to engage your attention by whatever little knowledge I have. कभी कभी देखते हैं आप बहुत बात करते हैं तो हम डिक्टेट करना शुरू कर देते हैं, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी कुछ लोग लगे रहते हैं. बट लेकिन अगर आपको इतनी बात समझ में नहीं आ रही है तो आपसे फाइट तो हम कतई नहीं करेंगे. आप समझ रहे हो ना, क्यों फाइट करें आपसे. ठीक है. वी टीच बिकॉज वी एक्सपीरियंस समथिंग वेरी गुड. हमें अच्छा लगता है. और आपको जब गुस्सा हो जाएंगे, एंगर में आ जाएंगे, डांटना शुरू करेंगे, तो पैसे से ज्यादा रिवार्डिंग हमारे लिए वो एक्सपीरियंस होता है. ठीक है ना. अटेंशन समझते हो, लाइफ की जितनी कीमती चीजें हैं वो सब हम ही लोगों को मिलती है. ठीक है. आप सोचो, आजकल कोई किसी को टाइम नहीं देता. आप देखो कितना टाइम देते हो, इतने सारे लोग आके बैठ के. ठीक है. आई एम ग्रेटफुल टू ऑल ऑफ यू. तो आप अन्नदाता हमारे, इतना टाइम देते, इतना एक्नॉलेज करते हैं, हम आपको क्यों डांटेंगे भाई. ठीक है. उसके बाद से टाइम के अलावा लोग क्या कहते हैं, टाइम के बाद और कौन सी चीज कीमती है? मनी. इंस्टीट्यूट वाले बैठे हुए हैं मनी देने के लिए, इतना देते हैं कि हमें भी यकीन नहीं होता है कि इतना क्यों दे रहे हैं. ठीक है. तो वी आर लिविंग अ वेरी ब्लिसफुल लाइफ हियर. व्हाई टू हैव एनीथिंग नेगेटिव इन इट. ठीक है ना. पैसा वो दे रहे हैं, उसके बाद से पैसा होता है लोगों के पास, और क्या होता है? टाइम. उसके बाद से नेक्स्ट वैल्यूबल चीज क्या होती है? अटेंशन. उसको कोई ध्यान नहीं देता. किसी के पास टाइम ही पैसा है, कोई ध्यान ही नहीं देता. आप देखो ना, घर से नहा धो के आके बैठते हो, घंटे देखते हो हमें, कोई किसी की सुनता नहीं आजकल. आप इतना सुनते हो हमारी, सुनते ही नहीं, लिखते भी हो, जेरोक्स भी कराते हो. हे प्रभु कहां हो आप? आपसे क्यों लड़े हम? आपसे क्यों लड़े? ठीक है. आप इतनी सारी चीजों के सोर्स हो हमारे लिए, ठीक है. सो वी कांट फाइट विथ यू, यू आर अन्नदाताज, वी आर obliged to all of you, but then there is something that is called your interest. But then when you can serve our interest, you know how to protect your interest. जब आप हमें इतना फायदा पहुंचा सकते हो, थोड़ा अपना भी फायदा कर लो. अगर आपको लगता है कि बात करने में आपको फायदा है तो खूब करो, हम आपको मना तो कभी नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है ना. अब आप अगर ये सोचते हो कि लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मेंटेन करने की जिम्मेदारी हम गरीब फैकल्टीज को होती है, तो दैट इज नॉट द केस. ज्यादा हल्ला करोगे 100 नंबर को डायल करेंगे, वो भी हम नहीं करेंगे, बोलेंगे सर को, सर बोलेंगे किसी और को, वो करेगा और फोन उठा के ले जाएंगे लोग आपको यहां से. हम क्यों पंगा लें आपसे. तो टेक केयर ऑफ योर इंटरेस्ट. पैसा तो दिया ही होगा ना आपने, सो यू हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ योर इंटरेस्ट, ठीक है. एंड डोंट एक्सपेक्ट मी टू एज्यूम व्हाट दोज पावर्स विच डोंट बिलोंग टू मी, दैट आई कांट मेंटेन लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इन दिस क्लास, ठीक है. आपसे कोई पंगा हम कभी नहीं लेना चाहेंगे. क्यों लेना चाहेंगे, इतना अच्छा अच्छा काम आप हमारे लिए कर रहे हो, ठीक है. आप ही की वजह से हमारी लाइफ में इतनी खुशियां आ रही हैं, ठीक है. आपसे क्यों पंगा करें हम, हमारे तो कस्टमर हो ना, कस्टमर इज किंग. तो किंग से, राजाओं से कौन लड़ेगा और क्यों लड़ेगा, ठीक है. हम तो आपकी तारीफ ही करेंगे. तो लिखा हुआ है इसमें कि भाई, मैं तो नाम नहीं पढ़ूंगा किसी का, तू तो पढ़ ले. तू क्या पोर्टल पे टाइम वेस्ट कर रहा है. सही लिखा है सर. इवन टुडे साइंटिस्ट आर मेकिंग टूल्स मेंशन्ड इन सुश्रुत संहिता. हाउ कुड सुश्रुत डिस्कवर्ड them and why we are not taught about these magnificent discoveries in school colleges? We are taught, that's why we are talking about them. Degree may be on lower side. So there was a time when history was mainly about kings and queens. Now history has turned towards cultural history. So naturally these people are going to be more important. So things are changing, but we can't say that they are not taught. They are taught, and that's why we are familiar with them. Is this clear? So right now what you are writing? Geomorphological features of the subcontinent, like forests, hills, like forests, hills, rivers, etc. Then write flora and fauna. Flora like you and fauna like me. Flora and fauna. Flora, look at me while writing flora, and think of yourself while writing a fauna of the subcontinent. So his description is quite rich. Now let us move beyond this geomorphological feature. So right here, that write notions related to next point, notions related to Indian astronomical notions related to Indian astronomical and astrological. In the remote past it becomes very difficult to distinguish them. Today we can distinguish them. Astrological, knowledge. So he is talking about Indian astronomy, Indian astrology. Then write next you write 10 directions, 10 TEN, 10 directions. 10 directions. In our culture, how many directions are accepted? 10. 4 cardinal directions, 4 corners, 8, and then up and down. We have 10 directions. Then write next point. Methods related to calculation of time and distance. Methods related to a calculation of a time and distance. Notions are related to a time and distance. Calculation of time and measurement of time and distance. That is Indian notions. In India, we generally talk about pahar, do pahar, teen pahar. It is not about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. रात के तीसरे पहर. Have you heard of this kind of? So एक पहर कितना होता है? 3 hours. ठीक है? Then write Indian notions related to the movements of stars. Stars और एक और होते हैं ना, क्या कहते हैं उनको? Stars and planets, that is planetary motions and their impact. Basically that is astrology. We are becoming more specific. And their impact on the human life. Regarding all these things, Indian wisdom, what India had to say. Then write next. Then write next. Do you know something that is called that is related to determining, auspicious days and days of festivals? Some calculations involved in that. That is something panchang kind of thing. That is jantri. That is, all these terms are used. That is astronomical instruments. So right here, Indian methods related to determination of the dates of festivals. Indian methods related to the determination of the dates of festivals and the dates of festivals and other auspicious days. Shubh din, ashubh din. Don't you think we still talk about all these things? Clear? Then write next. Indian alchemy. ALCHEMY. What is alchemy? Are you familiar with this? Alchemy. In most of the ancient societies, we have this discipline that was basically developing as a part of search for gold. People wanted to become rich and they wanted to make gold in laboratories. So chemistry, it led to what? Development of a chemistry. That is alchemy. That is, they could never make gold in the laboratories, or we have made gold in laboratories. No. Industrial production of gold, or gold is still found naturally. Can't be manufactured. So people in every part of the world have some perpetual desires. They are very dominating kind of desires. Jaise to be rich. Do you think we all want to be rich? And then what? Immortal. So how many of you want to be immortal? I'll be suggesting you ways and means to become immortal, because I have immortalized myself. So that's why I am saying this. And then being immortal, but in which state? A state of youth. जवान भी रहना है, बुढ़ापा में immortal होना is what? That is curse, we can say. So staying young, staying forever, and staying rich. So in most of the spiritual, religious or other pursuits, we have these considerations. So in our culture, we have a rishi whose name was Chwayan. Have you heard of? Who made something that is called Chwayan Pras. Are you familiar with Chyawanprash? So if you want to stay perpetually youth, use Chyawanprash. Winters are coming. So that discovery is, that desire is fulfilled. What about staying immortal? Amrit, we lost Amrit because these demons and deities did not share Amrit with we the people of this planet Earth. And we tried hard to make gold in the laboratories, but we have yet not been able to make it. But these have been desires on the part of human beings, and they have served as inspiration or motivation behind many enterprises, including development of a chemistry. Is this understood? Then write next point. And just few more, just 2 or 3 more points, and after that I am going to leave you. I will leave you before you leave me, okay? So, what you are writing? Write Indian medicine, Indian system of medicine, Indian system of medicine. So he mentions about Indian system of medicine, but he does not mention Indian system of surgery. So it seems that he read what we can say Charak Samhita, but could not read a Susrut Samhita. So that is sufficient, I think. Can you write 100-200 words on Al-Biruni? Okay, so now let us meet, not tomorrow, sometime in the future. Let us see when. I think it was last class in this series. हाँ, तो wish you all the best. चलिए देखते हैं कब मिलते हैं फिर.